that's why I try not to be. I always like to listen. I have to make sure that I ain't just one sided.
Yeah.
Sometimes people can be like that. I don't want to be like that.
And also too, dude. You're recording right now. Yeah. I want others to come towards me. You know what I mean, and like debate me. Like if you hear that I'm saying something that's something that you don't necessarily believe in, it's like, tell me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the only way we can grow. If I'm saying something stupid, tell me.
Yeah.
Tell me where I'm wrong. You know, kind of like the Dave Smith and Douglas Murray debate. He said, "Stop telling me I'm not an expert. Just tell me what I'm saying that's wrong." So
that's what I like to hear.
Yeah, but Darin, right?
Yep.
Okay. I appreciate you for coming on, man. Appreciate you emailing me. I'm super stoked to hear about your book. You sent me a cool summary about it. I am going to read it. I promise you. We need to get it on audio. Yeah. That would help me out. Yeah. And with your voice.
There you go. Yep.
I'm a big fan of that, man. Since I've seen Rogan say that, way back in the day, it's like, I'm a big believer on that. Sometimes I understand some people can't read it as well, or you think you want to have more of some type of more soothing voice, but I don't know. When I talk to you, I like what I hear. So.
You can listen to a CD audio on your way to work.
I could, man. I could. So let's kind of go over, you sent me some things. You were in the military. I'd really love to kind of start there, but let's first start just kind of where you grew up, and kind of walk me through that and kind of how you got into the military life. And
Gotcha. Yeah. I grew up, when I was born, my mother had been married. She had 3 boys, divorced. Same thing for my dad, married. So that was a second marriage. He had 5 kids. And then they had me. Now I was around my 3 brothers from my mom's side a lot, but I grew right up between Bud Park High School and Northeast High School.
Oh, okay.
And so growing up over there, always active in sports competitively, bowling, baseball, and basketball. I was too little for football, but I still played. And grew up over there, went to Thatcher Elementary, and then went to Northeast Junior High School in 7th and 8th grade. Now, at the same time, I thought I was really, I was a mama's boy, really. But I was growing in a rough neighborhood. So
for sure.
Things had to change a little bit over time. But once we graduated high school, and that was a challenge. But after a few years of doing just terribly, ditching school and all that stuff, I kind of had to come to Jesus with myself as far as I'm going to graduate high school. I wanted to graduate that. And I was still playing sports. So I ended up going to college and playing baseball after I graduated high school. I was the same size I am now, 165 pounds. I was pretty good ball player. Played in college, lower level because I jacked around high school, junior college. Then after 3 years of that, I had about 2 years worth of college. I had like 67 credit hours. But I'd also been a father at the age of 18, and I felt like I'm chasing something that I was not going to catch, potentially minor league or something like that. So I decided to join the Army. And so I did that, and that was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life.
How was life in Northeast back then? Was it the same? I mean, I know it's probably gotten worse, over the years for sure. But how was that, kind of growing up down there at that time? What year was that?
So I was born in 67.
Okay.
Graduated in 86 because I got me that extra year. No, it depends on how you look at it. Now, I don't feel like I'm cut out to live there no more because, rough. It was just a more rougher area.
Right.
There was actually sometimes kids go around like they're looking for a fight, and I'd been around drugs and alcohol and partaked in that myself, So there's a lot of challenges there, at least for me. If I'd have looked at myself when I was like 15 years or 16 years old on the verge of dropping out of school, smoking weed, drinking alcohol, there's no way I would have laid any money on me to have anything of a future.
Right.
So it took me to say enough's enough.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I think it was fairly rough.
Were gangs big back then?
No, back then they had I think the thing called the 9th Street Dogs back then in 85s. I never really knew any of them. But I from over time, I know that gangs have really, really grown since then. So that was just baby gang.
And wasn't Northeast like very Italian back then?
Yes. Yeah. Very much Italian, and a lot of good history there. Started off centuries ago in the old North End, down there real north near like the Burlington Bridge area, and kind of expanded, So and I grew up with a lot of Italian. My football team, whole bunch of Italian players, in like grade school and stuff.
Right. Okay. So then you got to you joined the military. What kind of pushed you to join the military? Like, was there somebody you knew, or did you do like the ROTC type thing?
No. My 3 brothers all did stints in the Navy. The one nearest me did 10 years in the Navy. My father was in the Navy during World War II. And then my uncle Hubert, he's like a legend in our family, a farmer. He was infantry in Patton's Army. So I just knew that if I joined the Army, I'm going to have a job and probably better myself. I call it grown-up Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
So it'd probably be really good for me, and it was.
That's crazy for you to think at that age, though. Because I know at 18, I mean, I was probably,
20,
how old were you?
20. I was 22 when I joined.
Oh, 22.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were getting old. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes sense. Why didn't you join at 18?
A
lot of them go straight out of high school.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a good idea. Because I was probably almost as good as I thought I was in baseball. Still pretty good.
You said
I wanted to go chase that
Yeah.
if you can get a shot at the minor leagues and get an education. And I kind of halfway did both,
Okay. Yeah, and you had a child too, so it'd be hard to up and just leave right then and there.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And so at 22, sore arm, this and that, just 3 years of chasing. Let's get real here.
Right.
And we got us a job at the Army.
Yeah. Okay. So when you first joined, you went into the military?
I went to the
Army?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Why the Army?
Well, I looked at all of them, and I looked at all branches. Fortunately, I tested real good. They call it the GT score. If you make 110 on the GT score, you can basically do about any job they have out there. That's a combination of different subjects, reading, writing, math, all that.
Right.
But I felt like what I was able to, I didn't want to be stuck on a submarine or on a ship in the Navy. I just wasn't feeling the Air Force. I just went with the Army. I thought, I knew a little bit more about it. Also, in my first contract, I got 2 things: got a $5,000 or $8,000 signing bonus, and guaranteed continental United States first duty station.
Yeah, money talks. Yeah.
That means I could come home, when I get leave and visit family.
That's good. That's good. Do others not offer that?
Oh, they probably did. It's just kind of what I want to do. And
that package deal was kind of, that was a good deal for you.
Yeah, at the time, from time to time, depending on their recruiting needs, they'll have bonuses.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So how was it like? You go to basic and then you get through that. And then what was your job?
This is where if I had to go back in time, I always say I might pick a different job, but I wanted to be infantry, combat soldier, all that cool stuff. Right. And I understand that. But so I went to basic training now, and you go to basic training. It's at like Fort Benning, Georgia, is where they have infantry basic training at. And it's challenging. They rush you. They're pushing you. And fortunately, my brother that had just got out of the Navy, he went to me and helped prepare me everything. So basically there was, no matter what we're going to do, I'm going to graduate. Right. And they have a high graduation rate anyway. So then after 8 weeks and a half of basic training, you go to your technical training, no matter what job it is. If you're a medic, you'll go like the Fort Sam Houston, 16 weeks of medic training. If you're infantry, you'll do it right there, Fort Benning, Georgia.
Could I ask you real quick on basic training? How intense was that? Was that,
I think it's pretty good.
Would you say with the high graduation rate through basic, so it's not too bad. I'm sure it's grueling,
They want you to pass, but
but not make it too easy.
There's going to be a couple that just like something happens to them, crying or whatever, and just losing mind or something. and don't pass it. But
well, what are you guys doing though? A lot of would you just a lot of marching, a lot of push-ups, a lot.
The first 2 weeks, the first day you're going to get off a bus like at Fort Benning, Georgia, right? You'll be at the reception station. You've been there a few days. You're getting ready to go basic training, and then the drill sergeants will come pick you up, and they call it a shark attack, right? It's been a long time ago, like 30-something years ago, but I still remember.
Yeah.
You get off the bus with all your bags, and you got a whole cast of fresh, ready drill sergeants ready to, and they're just yelling, "Get up in there, soldier, blah, 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 move, move, move. What's wrong with you, And it's real intense, a lot of noise, and then you'll get up, set up in your barracks. In the first 2 weeks, they ride you very hard because it's basic.
Right.
Basic. Then after a couple weeks, though, in the marching thing, you'll learn how to march, but you'll march in the mornings like you'll march to go eat breakfast to the chow hall.
Mm-hmm.
You'll march, to the training site. So that'll be your marching, right?
Right.
And there is a little drill and ceremony that you'll learn specifically stuff, about face, right face, all that good stuff.
Okay.
But no, it's a pretty intense 2 weeks. And then after two or 3 weeks, they'll go to a new phase, and it'll be a little bit more team building. You'll notice the drill sergeants will ease up a little bit, encourage the team building, teamwork, because in anything you do, really, it's a team sport.
Right.
And then phase 3, towards the end, it's more of they'll set up things for you to really do well at, the confidence course where you climb all these towers. Just to make you should really feel like you've accomplished something by the time you're done.
Right.
But so I didn't have a hard time other than, it was physically active. I just made sure I'm going to graduate.
Yeah.
So I ain't doing this.
Well, I know how powerful it is because I remember when I was younger, guys that were going to basic and coming out, I mean, they were a whole different person when they came back. I mean, they were a whole hoorah, especially Marines. Like, when they come back, they're ready to go. Yeah. So, I'm sure it was definitely intense, but as well as, like you said, they want to build you up into this soldier and make you feel like you're invincible and that you can, take on whatever mission's in front of you. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. But so after that, after basic, then you go to your technical training, and then.
And for me specifically, I was what's called an 11 Bravo or a Charlie.
Yeah.
There's 11 Bravo is your straight infantryman. 11 Charlie is infantry, but you shoot mortars.
Oh, okay.
Dropping them down the tube, and lining that thing up, I felt good about it. It's like, well, wow, that's why they had me take the math test. But you're lining those indirect fire infantrymen is what it is. Yeah. And you're lining up those mortars, shooting, down range.
Yeah. How the hell do you guys figure like that? That's insane to me.
Well, before I even started doing that, there was books that, the projectiles, like there's 3 different sizes of mortars, but no matter which one it is, you'll drop it down the tube. But before you drop it, it'll have these charges on it. Like say if it has 4 charges, it's really going to go out there. But this already predetermined what elevation you need to set your mortar tube at, right? And then how many charges, and then the direction. So when you put it like charge 3, elevation, this angle, whatever it is, like 1385 or whatever, it's going to go approximately a certain area. It's a area,
I guess, you're right. You're right. You're not having to pinpoint exactly. You just need to know what area. Yeah. But I'm guessing, though, before you do that, you have to know how far that area is and all sorts of stuff. So I'm sure that coordinates is very important as well.
Well, yeah, and they always have a fire direction control section, like 2 or 3 guys in our section. They're talking to the guy down range who is telling us, he's like a forward observer. He's saying, like, let's say he's 2 miles down the range.
Right.
All right. And he's got his eyes on a target, and he'll call in and he'll be like, troops in the open, let's say. Okay. And he'll give the FDC center a distance from him and his location. And that way our guys can determine, okay, where's he at? And then the direction using a compass, boom. Okay. It's about right here. And then they'll plug in our data to shoot them.
Oh, so it's a whole team thing. Okay.
Yes, it is.
So it's not just 2 guys out there trying to figure all this out.
No, you're back a little ways and shooting at them where they shouldn't be able to see you.
Gotcha. Got you. Okay. Okay. So what else went down after that then? So you learned your mortar,
Yeah.
you know, how to do all that. And then.
Yeah. So then I come home, basic training was over, graduate, come back home for a little bit. During the end of our technical training, I found out, that's when you find out where you're going to be stationed. And I was and my first duty station assigned to me was the 101st Airborne Division, which Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And one thing, it's a very proud division with a lot of history.
It must be because I've heard that before. Yeah.
If you watch movies, you'll see a lot of guys with their patches. They'll have that eagle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's really a cool patch. One little thing, they still maintain the name 101st Airborne Division, but in parentheses at their division, it'll say air assault because they stopped jumping out of planes after Vietnam.
Okay.
And they do a lot of things with helicopters. They will, like if you're in with that division and your infantry in training, or like when we was in Iraq, they're going to take you to the place to fight by helicopter or nearby.
Hold on one second. I'm sorry. Can I scoot you over just a tad?
Yeah.
This way. Just a
little
bit. Yeah, right there. That's good. Sorry. I'm sorry. I was making sure the camera kind of gets in the way. So continue. I'm sorry. So
anyway, they're air mobile. You know, they'll do a lot of stuff with helicopters, sling load equipment. But it was a really good division. I was E3, which is good at private first class because I had 60 college credit hours. So that was nice. Pay was a little bit better. Right. And I got to my unit and we did not long after I was there, we went on a training mission where we played war games. When you do war games, they put what's called miles gear, laser gear on you. And they don't give you bullets, but they give you blanks and they put stuff on your gun. So it's really good simulating combat training. We did a few weeks at Fort Stewart, Georgia, just a few months after I got there. And then about a month later, we flew out to the National Training Center. That's the place where I don't know what they have now. I've been there since, but back then in the early 90s, it was Soviet style tactics, and we're going to go train against them. So we was out there for 3 weeks.
Was there a reason why they picked that?
Well, at the time there, that was our, biggest adversary. So you always want to be prepared to fight your biggest adversary, Right. Soon after, though, there was an opportunity. This was in 1990, in the spring, right? In 1990, there was an opportunity to transfer one battalion over to go to Egypt for 6 months. It's a really good deployment. They've had it since 1980. It's a multinational forces and observers. It's a peacekeeping deal between Egypt and Israel. Okay. It's going on today. And I signed up to go for that. And so we trained for that in the summer, and we all took leave right before we were getting ready to go to Egypt. And then in July of 1990, Saddam Hussein, he invaded Kuwait, basically just going to take that land, So about 3 days before I was going to go back to Fort Campbell from leave, I got a call from my squad leader, said, you need to come back tomorrow or the next day because we're going to Iraq, or we ended up going to Saudi Arabia. So that's where the Desert Storm kicked in. And that covers my first half a year in the military. Really? Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. So Desert Storm started what year?
So the first mission technically was Desert Shield, which started in late August of 1990. The 101st and the 82nd Airborne, which are their partners. They're a thing called 18th Airborne Corps. So they got sent over because they're light, mobile. Let's get people on the ground. Okay. So we went over in September 5th. We arrived in Saudi Arabia. We had a big tent city build up. We didn't do anything. They were just building up the army, telling Saddam Hussein to get his army out. They're not listening, and he's like, he's just testing. I mean, he didn't move his army. Right. We started, so we did the Desert Shield. We was training basically every day, different type of training stuff. Yeah. And then right before the air war started on January 17th of the following year, 1991. So October, November, December, January, 4 months. And it was a huge air campaign, but we were on the border of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. So quite an experience for a young guy,
Yeah, yeah.
But thank God, that's why I love the Air Force, man, because they kept us not having to, have a big problem. They really did an extremely good job.
Oh, I bet. How was it in Saudi Arabia? I'm sure different for sure, especially how young you were. How old were you when you got there?
Well, I was 23.
Okay.
I was 23 when I got there. And as I look back now, I was a pup, young guy.
Yeah. And how much had you traveled prior to that?
I'd never been out of the country.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And we weren't around civilian population. So we were at a big whole bunch of tents for all 3 battalions, know. So we was in an Army environment with nothing but tents and doing, just like we was at an Army base, doing physical fitness in the morning, doing training, throughout the day, eating food. There was one occasion that we went out for about a month and a half, maybe a month of extended training out in the field. So between between Tent City and out in the desert, it was about half and half, counting the training and then out to go for the war. The fact of the matter is, and one thing I like to watch sometimes on YouTube, just from time to time, is General Schwarzkopf. He was our general then. He led the whole war, given his briefing after the war had ended. See, Kuwait was filled with tanks, and that's not a war for light infantry guys, right?
Right.
So what our mission was, we basically formed a long line halfway between Baghdad and Kuwait. And a lot of guys were leaving the Kuwaiti area. They just had to leave their weapons. They might even get some food, but that was our deal, And it's a lot better than having to go fight tanks.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because who comes in to fight the tanks?
Bradley fighting vehicles and our tanks. But, really through the air war, because early in the air war, our Air Force and Navy was able to take out their air defense, right? So that's big. Now they can't shoot down our planes. I used to say we're flying over them like the monkeys in the Wizard of Oz. And so that has allowed them to just brutalize any of their assets, and by the time that the war was wrapped up, there's guys that had been eating hardly anything that were in the Iraqi army, so it was a war. It was just no hurry, whittle them down, just like that.
Could you explain to me more in detail Desert Storm and the whole reason behind that? I know you said Saddam Hussein was involved in that as well, but what was it? Because I don't know much about Desert Storm.
Well, there was there's a country over there named Kuwait. It's a small country,
right? Really
a small oil-rich country, right? Now, at the time, Saddam Hussein was in a war with Iran, his neighbors, from 1980 to 1988. And from
this is kind of when the Iran Contra and all that stuff was around.
I
think it was the 80s.
It could have been. Yeah, it was under Reagan, but and I don't know who. Not an expert on that, but
I'm not either. I'm still learning. Yeah, I'm still learning.
But I know that Saddam was whittled down, as far as economically, and my understanding is he needed that. He needed Kuwait, man. He needed that. He wanted to take it. That happens,
Yeah.
And I just remember the American response. They built a coalition, us, like Great Britain, some of the European countries. We had Egyptians that were fighting against, ready to fight against them. We had them. They were right down the road. A lot of times how that'll happen is we'll have our special forces training, those armies.
Yeah.
And you would,
I've heard about that.
And you would hear them. Here's an example. Saddam tried to get Israel to retaliate. He shot a few Scud missiles their way. But whenever something like that would happen, that he would shoot a Scud missile, we would get a gas alert. We go to what we call MOP 4, put all of our gas equipment just in case. And it was always interesting. The Egyptian infantry guys that were down the road, you could hear them like, it's just part of how they do, but they were, getting roused up and everything, getting their stuff on. Yeah. But
Yeah, because he was known for doing a lot of gas attacks, right?
He had gassed the
his own
Kurdish
people.
population who were anti-Saddam.
Yeah.
But, like I said, it really comes back to trying to take over a country that was not his.
Right.
And it's been a long time, but I remember.
Yeah. For sure. So how long were you over there for?
Exactly 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
And then you were off to where?
Back to Fort Campbell and then back home on some leave.
Okay.
And
You just kind of went back to regular life?
No, I still had a few more years at Fort Campbell.
Uh-huh.
So after that, that Egypt mission I was talking about, about a year and a half after we got back, we ended up doing that mission. And what I did, we was in the Sinai Peninsula, which is below Egypt.
Oh, okay.
And it's really organized, Italian Navy, British, Army or whatever. You'd have all these, that's why I call it multinational. And we actually had sporting events like basketball or softball, little leagues. But you're doing if you're in a tower, you might be doing any ship reports or aircraft reports, just reporting on anything out of, they train you up on all that. And, but, so it was really if you're going to deploy, I always said, if you're going to deploy, that was a really good place to deploy.
Okay.
No war going on. I got to go to Cairo, Egypt twice, see the pyramids. And I also got to go on a 5-day Holy Land tour of Israel. And that was kind of a good deal. So,
and I'm sorry if you already explained it, but you were in Egypt. Why?
Because,
what were we doing in Egypt?
Yeah. In 1979, there used to be a lot of conflict with Israel and Egypt, right?
Right.
So what they did, it's called the Multinational Forces and Observers, right? And it's different nations that agreed to provide a peacekeeping force so that they wouldn't be fighting all the time. And there's several countries involved. I just remember a few, because it's been so long.
Yeah.
And so far they haven't done any fighting, so it's been a long time.
Seems like a lot of countries are always trying to go after Israel, huh? You said Iran and, or what'd you say? Iran, Egypt.
Well, this was between Egypt and Israel, but my experience over there is, there's a lot there. And they don't like Israelis. They don't, it's crazy. And I'm probably with you on that.
Yeah. I mean, my opinion on it, definitely, there's a lot to it. I'll say that, the sad thing is you get slapped with an anti-Semite label if you discuss it. So
I understand,
which I still discuss it because I'm not going to let people slap it's just like, you can't talk about black people and black issues. You know what I mean? Because you'll get labeled a racist. I think that's stupid. I think we should be able to talk about all races, religions. If there's something that seems fishy or something that's not right, it should be discussed. You can't hide behind history of, well, we were persecuted in Holocaust or slavery. It's like, okay, guys, I get that. And we definitely need to pay attention to history and learn from that. But let's discuss the ongoing issues now. And why are these things happening? So that's my take on that. But to go on from that, then you end up coming back to the States. You're there for a little bit. You said you're
6 months in Egypt too. Yeah.
6 months in Egypt, but then you're back. And then what happens after that?
In 1993, in September, my 4 years was complete. Right. So I ETS'd. I did my full term, honorable discharge. Then I got back and I was like, I'm always, even today in retirement, I'm always looking to have a little side gig. Right.
How old were you then?
I was 26.
Oh, okay, cool.
Soon after my full-time job, I was a carpenter in the Carpenters Union.
Oh, nice.
And that was a good gig because it was good work. You're, using the tape measure, building things and learning a trade. And I really felt good about that. Yeah. But I also joined the National Guard, which normally is 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer. Right. And now they can get called up and deploy, and they have. And so in November of 2000, I know I went through a few years here, but so I got out in 93. In November of 2000, I saw where an active duty position for the Army National Guard where I was at was open and I was eligible. Now I like the Carpenters Union but this was an opportunity that I wanted to take advantage of.
Right.
Because I'm active duty again, but I'm in my hometown with the National Guard. Right. And, so I went up to the guy who was going to be working for if I got hired. And I said, what do I need to study for? And he said, typing speed. Well, I had a computer. I took typing in college. So ended up I got hired for that position. And that was, I always thank God for that because it's not an easy world out there sometimes. Oh, yeah. That was a great job. Yeah. And then
what'd you do between the years of 93 and 2000?
So I was in the Carpenters Union.
So you're just working?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Doing your National Guard stuff every weekend. What all, well, I don't know much about the National Guard. I've known people that have done it. Like, what do? You just meet up, you do some training, and then, you go home? Or?
Somewhat, but it's really organized. I mean, if you watch Rambo movie, you know how it is. It's a good movie too, but
I love Rambo.
They had some National Guard guys come after him, and they do look like clowns, but it was a movie.
Yeah. And I'm not saying they don't do much. I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, they don't do shit. Like I know they do stuff for sure.
No, and I spent several years as a recruiter for the National Guard. So I've done a lot of explaining, but
they're called in for a lot of stuff, especially like when cities are going crazy. Yeah.
Well, here's another deal. In 92, I think they had maybe early 93, they had real bad floods in the Kansas City area.
Yeah, they help out with that stuff too, don't they?
They have a dual mission, the National Guard, different than the reserves, but similar. But they're the one that can be called in for like riots or emergent natural disasters, right? Okay. So they can be called up by the governor for that.
And reserves are?
They're federal. So they're never state, right?
Okay.
So they're just like your regular Army, but they'll backfill the regular Army if needed.
Got you.
But they're also 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer type of dudes.
Okay. So they're kind of similar but different. At the same time.
In the fact that their mission, the National Guard, state mission, or can be called up for deployment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So National Guard can also be called up. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Has that happened before?
Yeah, I did a year in Baghdad in 2005.
Yeah, you did send me that.
And before after 9/11, we went to they sent our whole battalion to Europe. Almost right after 9/11. Now, what we did over there is we did a lot of guarding bases, and then a lot of their tank divisions were prepping to leave to go over to like Iraq and all that stuff.
So you were guarding bases because of what happened in 9/11? Yes. They were worried about attacks on embassies and bases and stuff?
Yeah. And at the same time, it freed up some of our active duty guys that were getting ready to go to their next mission.
Right.
Was to go over there and fight the bad guys.
Yeah, right. Fuck, man. Yeah, that's crazy. That's got to be wild. So then you ended up deploying to Baghdad.
And
did you ever think that was going to happen? Like you had already done,
Okay, so in 2001, February 1st, I started my job, active duty for the Guard. We call it AGR. I thought it was a dream job. And then all of a sudden, 9/11 happens, and you are going to deploy because since I've been in the National Guard for at least 8 years, we never deployed, never even close.
But probably didn't think you would, right?
Yeah, I thought probably not.
Yeah.
But
was that a little scary at first?
Well,
or were you kind of like, all right, let's do this?
It's kind of like, damn,
Yeah. Because how old were you at the time?
Well, see, I'd already done the deployment with Saudi Arabia, or was it Desert Storm?
That's what I'm saying. Then now you're going into a whole nother war. Yeah.
Baghdad, I felt pretty good about just because I was older. By then I was E7, Sergeant First Class, kind of senior, and I felt really good about it. Where we were going to be, at the Baghdad International Airport. By that time, we got there in November of 2005. By that time, the whole international airport at Baghdad had different sections. You had British guys over in this, had like Camp Victory, Camp Slayer, Camp Cropper, where Saddam happened to be, which I didn't know at the time, but just all kinds of.
What do you mean he was there?
When they captured Saddam, this is my understanding, just because I like to be 100% accurate, but my understanding was he was held at Camp Cropper, which was at the Baghdad International Airport. And
what year did we get Saddam?
I think around 2004.
Was it that quick? I always felt like it was later than that.
It was before 2005. And I remember I was at home because my mom called me and woke me up on the couch. Guy had been a pain in my ass, but
yeah, because they ended up hanging him, didn't they?
They ended up hanging him,
yeah. I remember that. I remember the video.
Yeah.
Their video got leaked. I remember watching it. Yeah.
But over in Baghdad, I thought I mentioned to you, so you have our mission was we would have some of the guys, they would do patrols and really good, kind of keep the area good. Towers around, one of the things you would find is different factions of Iraqis fighting each other.
Right.
You'd run into that sometimes, different like little militias. And the food was great. They had contracted over there cooking the food great. But it was really, there was not a whole lot of danger. God forbid we had a guy, and this guy's a legend, and, whenever you lose somebody, they were on a different type of mission. They would travel like VIP protection type stuff, basically undercover with like a senator or a general. And we did lose one out of our 600 or so battalion, and a few injuries, but that their car got bombed that they were traveling in. And that's terrible. But overall, the mission was pretty good.
Were you good? You didn't get into anything kind of hairy? Or,
no. My primary deal over there was a lot of administrative stuff within our unit.
You were higher up the rank.
Well, it depends. You can be a higher. We just had so many higher ups, and that was my full-time job anyway.
Right.
I would go out to towers sometime extra, and I'll be quite honest. I got this thing called the Combat Instruments Badge for Desert Storm, and I kind of wanted to get another one, the Star, which some guys did. So I would go out to towers sometimes, but it was also a good look.
What does that mean, go out to tower?
Towers where the guys are monitoring the outside areas where someone wanted to jack with us, set up a mortar or
like recon types. So you guys are watching out.
Yeah, they're just like guards.
Yeah.
And I remember one time it was in May and it was really getting hot. There was a lot of fighting going on, which there wasn't a whole lot of fighting going on for most of the time. And I remember I was in this one tower, and then there's an apartment building, and there's another tower over there. The guys over there did some shooting at some bad guys, but we could only hear it, but we couldn't see them. But, once you get some rank in there, you don't want to just sit down and do little. You want to get out there with these younger guys who are doing it, and let them know you're there.
Yeah, you want to be with your team. Yeah. Because when was it? I mean, it was bad for a while, but I feel like at the beginning, wasn't it pretty, like right when we stepped over there, didn't it get pretty hairy? Like
it did, yeah.
Because I had Joe Wirtz on, and he was a ranger, and he did like 6 tours. So we did 2 episodes on this podcast on him, and he talked a lot about what he dealt with over there, and it was wild.
God bless that guy.
Wild stories, man. Yeah,
guaranteed.
Yeah,
I know that early in the, sometimes you get in there and think you won, then they got insurgents. They got, the insurgency thing was big.
Yeah, that's what he said, man. It's hard, and it just. War all around sucks. It sucks. You want to go over there. You want to kill the bad guy, and unfortunately, who's who. And then you're kind of creating terrorists over there at some point because you might get some right, you might get some wrong, and it's almost like a never-ending battle. It just doesn't stop. And it's just sad all around, scary. It's wild, man. Some of the stories I've heard, a lot of the stuff I've watched on podcasts or listened to, and you always try to think of, what's the best answer for this? Of course, not fighting is the best, solution. But, when you're kind of stuck in a position of what do we do? It's like, could have 9/11 been avoided? For sure. There's plenty of, things that have came out that said we could have avoided that. Was the best thing to go over there? We could say yes. Should we have stayed over there for so long? No, I think we all figured that out later on. But yeah, man, it's just when you get into that, what's the right answer? Of course, looking back, it's easier to judge because you kind of have all the facts and evidence here to be able to judge it, you know, but when you're in it, you're having to make these decisions, and it's, you know, definitely got to be hard.
Some of the guys that know me knew that when we attacked Afghanistan, I thought that was a solid deal.
Yeah.
When we also attacked, now we're also doing Iraq and Afghanistan. At the time, I used to go, you know, fighting like this is pretty hard.
Yeah.
However, I will say that when I worked with an interpreter, a wonderful lady, older, who was from there. And I worked with her on a couple of reports we had to do every week. And I spent a lot of time with her. And after learning some of the things over there, I did start to say, okay, well, if that's things are going on, I could justify it.
For sure.
But that don't mean that it was right. I just know I kind of, at least me personally, after I learned some things about how life was there, I was like, okay, I can go with that.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of military guys, and a lot of them, you know, even Sean Ryan, who I've listened to before, he's explained that you'd never be able to get me to do the things I did at 20 years old. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, you don't really think, you more of just follow orders. And, you know, he's talked about some of the controversial things that he doesn't agree with anymore. That he's an older man, and he's able to look at all the facts and go over everything and be like, I think we went about this wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's okay to discuss. That's not being anti-America. That's not, you know, bashing our military. It's just saying, hey, guys, we should learn from what we did, you know, and how we went about it. And next time, maybe let's go about this a little better. That way we don't lose a ton of American soldiers. Innocent people in the Middle East don't get affected either and die. You know, like, could we have done? I mean, they have people in the military that literally strategize and go over things that haven't even happened yet. Just like, what if a war breaks out with Russia? How would we go about this? Like, we have very, I hope, intelligent people that are planning these things out. And I hope that their motive isn't, let's go to war. Let's keep this military industrial complex funded. Let's generate as much money as we can, or whatever their mission is. I hope it's more of, let's go and let's protect America, and let's, you know what I mean? Like, let's, you know, like, I would hope, you know, I would hope.
They in war gaming, you know, and I've read in the northern Philippines, just north of us is Taiwan. If China, my understanding is if China is able to capture Taiwan, all the best technology chips in the world now belong to China. Right now, we have a pretty good edge on that.
Because it comes out of Taiwan?
Yes. That's where a lot of the semiconductors are made. And so I see a lot of military over there doing training, you know, so I kind of stay on top of that. One of the things I did a few years back, and I let it slide just because I'm not into it as much, but I had in the past a membership to a thing called War on the Rocks. It's kind of like the Institute of Study of War. It only costs $10 a month.
Oh, okay.
Like, I know lieutenant colonels that are members, you know, you just get a good assessment of different things, you know.
Oh, really?
And
so they kind of break stuff down for you on that?
Yeah, and it might be different regional things going on.
Oh, you have access to other countries as well, and what?
Well, just it's what it is. It's a guy from, like, say, he just changed jobs, but he was Michael Kaufman. He had been a senior director of Russian combat studies for the Naval Academy or something of that nature. But guys like that. Okay. And they just get situation reports, you know. So I kind of stay on top of the Taiwan, China thing, you know.
How's that going?
What I hear, well, you know.
Yeah, because I got kind of hairy at one point.
Well, you know, so you'll find Army or our military over there from time to time doing coordinated training.
Right.
I know India just sold a bunch of missiles to Philippines, stuff like that. There's always that ongoing threat. And a lot of people expect it from China in the time frame of around 2027. You know, we'll see.
For a war to break out?
For China to go ahead and invade. That's what they think.
And I always thought Taiwan was a part of China.
They want to be free. It used to be, they've been separated for like 40 something years now, maybe more than that. I want to say since 48. I could be wrong.
Okay.
But yeah, it's lot of info there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and I don't expect us all to get everything right. I mean,
Right.
I've always said before, it's like whenever you're discussing so many different topics, the people who are listening and watching, you got to go do your own research. You cannot rely on just us right here having this discussion.
Thank you.
We are going to have a good foundation for you to go off of, you know, but in order for you to be able to get down into the details, you have to go spend the hours and you have to research this stuff. I get it. It's hard because you've got 8 hours at work or 10 hours at work. Then you got family, then you got sports or whatever you're doing. But if you want to be educated on this and you want to not be taken advantage of or out of the loop, you have to do some sort of research, even if it's 30 minutes a day of reading an article, like you said, like get download a cool app that's able to give you this information, hopefully not biased.
Right.
That is very difficult to find. But fortunately, we are in a beautiful time of free information out there on, you know, this that's in your pocket. You know, like it can be bad, but it can also be good. You know, it's up to you and you're going to get duped. I've been duped many times. You know, the best thing is to have a good attitude about it. Just go, hey, I fucked up. I believed him. I thought everything he was saying was right. It wasn't. I've learned. Show me what is right, you know, and use your brain, you know, and listen to different sides, not just your own echo chamber, you know, listen to all of it and then try to really come up with the conclusion of this sounds right, you know, like this sounds legit. But you can say it all day long. It's up to people to actually listen to that and actually implement that in their life. So, you know, but I'm sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
Oh, you didn't cut me off, but I was... Well, you know, I use the term accuracy. All I want to do is be accurate. I don't want to chase around, you know, if I want to know something. You mentioned reaching your pocket. I'll tell you one thing I found I like, either ChatGPT or Grok 3. Google's always been good too. You know, now, if it's something I want to hear, but I hear the other thing, you know, I need to be able to say, well, darn, I wish it was like that.
Right.
But they've been really accurate in good sourcing data, you know, but sometimes I think we want to hear what we want to hear.
Right.
You know,
but man, and like I said, I've been in that situation and I may still be in that situation from time to time. I hope I'm more objective about what I look at than before. But you can't be like, I'm on this team or I want it to be this way, so this is the only information I'm going to listen to. It's just not going to work. And even when it goes to ChatGPT, I love ChatGPT, I love Gronk, I love all that stuff. Be careful of that as well. You know, anything involving money, there's a possibility for bias. You know, it's going to happen. So you just got to find people. You know, I tried to look for the small guys, you know, the guys that really have no motive. And I know I say small, I mean, they're still pretty big, you know, but they're not like CNN, Fox News type figures. You know, these are guys that are podcasting or doing real journalism, more than likely out of their house or some small studio. You know what I mean? And like the Dave Smiths, like the Glenn Greenwalds, like the Jimmy Dores, like those type of figures. They are doing, I believe, and this is just how I feel, real unbiased journalism. You know, may they be a little biased at times on some topics? For sure, there's a possibility, but I think they are not like a CNN or Fox News where I feel like they're 80-90% biased.
That's what I'm talking about.
So that's what I try to look for, and I'm sure, like we had the discussion before, you look for as well.
Yeah,
so.
I personally, I'm up to the point where now I mostly, because of my investments in the stock market, which is not a whole lot, but I manage my account and my wife's account.
Yeah.
You know, I need accurate info. I need to know how the tariffs are going to affect Apple, NVIDIA, you know, all that stuff.
How's all that going right now?
I think it's going to be okay. And here's, you know, so there's just, if I think they're unbiased or I can show that they have a biased rating, right? then I just tune them out. And like All Sides Media, I'm not doing a promotion for them, but I can go on All Sides Media, get bias ratings, and it'll say CNN left lean, MSNBC strong left lean. Over here, right lean, strong right lean. I do like to watch Brett Baer, on Fox. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just because but
I mean, there's good guys. I mean, Tucker Carlson, he was on Fox News. He's a good dude.
Was. Not my guy, but that's okay.
I mean, some of the stuff he's talked about on his podcast, like I said, you're never going to fully agree. And I would hope you don't blindly follow somebody, I give MAGA guys and also, I'm not lumping all MAGA guys together, but I give also the other side too as well. The Democrats that just blindly support their leaders. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't. Speaking of tariffs, though.
So what
kind of a wild thing going on though right now. I mean,
so the guys that I'm tuned into specifically that are economists or I don't need 5 baseball batting coaches. No. I just need a few.
No.
They in the long term, and I personally think it's going to be okay. We've done a little bit of buying since April 2nd or 3rd to Liberation Day. Mm-hmm. I can make a joke. We got liberated from our money, but in all honesty, now what they believe it was handled recklessly. Mm-hmm. However, the terms that I'll use, and this is me quoting from the smarter people,
right?
That we do need to improve our trade deficit with various countries, and that is the ultimate goal. Mm-hmm. Do I think there was some showmanship in there? I do. I 100% do. But I think in the end, if you did not panic and sell and you own quality stocks, that you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I've been told before by the few that I've assigned to listen to and trust, when it gets really bad, you hold your nose and you buy some quality stocks.
Right.
And that's what we did.
You know what I find most people, though? Most people are complaining and they don't even have any stocks to even worry about. Now, I do understand the price of goods is going to go up as well. I totally get that. But where were those cries over the last 8 years?
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
Hey.
Like things have been going up over the last, maybe not 8 years, what, six years? I mean, I mean, and maybe they have. I can't lump everybody together. I'm not saying all the left is the same or all the right's the same, but I'm a free market guy. I don't like the whole tariff situation, but I'm also a realist. Right. If there's going to be tariffs, then everybody needs to pay their own fair share. Yeah. It's not right for America to get abused and other countries to be able to profit off of that and us not. So that's my thing.
I'm generally there too. And like I said, I will say this, in 2022, because we had smacked down so many handout payments from the COVID, our inflation rate, I got a really good education that year. Yeah. And every Wednesday it's like a third Wednesday of the month, whenever the consumer price index came out, I was usually in a bad mood because I had to wait and wait, and you only have so much money. You can only add to a market. Now, fortunately, it ended and starting, if you would have bought like Meta, we bought some Facebook, which is Meta, a good amount in towards November or December. And that's kind of when it bottomed, but that was a tough period, that inflation time.
Right.
So, when those things happen, we look at the top. Who's at the top? And we're mad at them, and that's just the way the world works.
I know, man. Yeah. It's crazy. I always tell people, though, man, I think money is the most important thing. I know we fight about abortions or immigration and all this stuff. Like they always have, the right and the left always have their like same 5 talking points. But really, and I'm glad we're discussing it now. We need to be talking about our debt.
Yes.
And we need to be real about this.
Right.
You can't. And even though I say we're discussing now, the people who are discussing it are still trying to raise our debt like $4 trillion. Right. They're like, hey, we're going to cut taxes and we're going to add tariffs, but we need $4 trillion also to.
Thank you.
What? Come on, guys.
Well,
it's counterintuitive.
One thing, and not to be old smarty pants, because I'm really humble and honestly, I can think of so many dumb things I did as the youngest brother. Youngest brother's probably always thinking he's dumb, but You know, a lot of people don't know how a lot of people, when I hear somebody say, well, we're borrowing all this money from China, I'm thinking, okay, you know, we have the open market stock, you know, bonds and treasuries, and as long as our dollar's good internationally, people will continue to buy that.
Right.
But what I subscribe to, as far as the economists that are helping me manage money and this and that, you know, we got to get that under control, just like you said.
Yeah.
You need to start spending less. And, you know, every time we hear about this new bill that's going to come out, and, you know, and it's just the way politics has been since I was a little kid. You promise on one hand,
right.
have a beer and a cigar in the other after you get elected.
But I'm glad you said that, because this is nothing new. It just keeps repeating every time. Yeah. So and I understand we're forced into this system because everybody, a majority of the population, this is what they want, I guess, because they're still, or maybe they feel the same way as us. Maybe they're like, well, fuck, man. I mean, this is all we got, you know? Yeah. And in reality, that's not true. Right. The problem is we don't want to take ownership of our own lives. We want to rely on them because we think, well, they have our best interest. Okay.
Right.
We would hope. And I'm sure there's a lot of good figures that really want that for you. But like you said, over how long you've been alive, it's been the same thing. Yeah. We promise we're going to do this, and we promise we're going to do that. And they throw you a bone, but then they do all this shit too, just to make it worse. So it's like, what is it, guys? What are we doing here? You know,
deficit, they got it. You know, I mean, my understanding is eventually they got to deal with it. They need to lower it. Yeah.
I mean, so countries are buying bonds and,
well, people, you know, I mean, like you and me could do the same thing.
Yeah. But that's what they buy. It's not money. It's like, I'm not an economist, so but that's what they buy. Well, at what point, when does it not become valuable? And
when
they're like,
nobody buys it.
We want our money.
I've never bought a treasury or a bond or anything, you know. So treasuries, like you can, like,
can a normal citizen can actually? Okay,
you can tune in tomorrow morning on whatever, like CNBC. That's where most people on Wall Street will have on their TV, and they'll show the treasury yield is up or down, you know, and that's basically free market for people to invest. When stocks get bad, when the economy gets bad, people will buy more of that, you know, interest rate, stuff.
No, you're good.
Nice.
You're all good. Hey, on my last podcast, I literally spit across the room. Yeah. So when you're watching it, so I was a guest on a podcast. Oh. And I'm talking, and all of a sudden I just spit right across. It's in 4K too, 4K HD. I'm like, well, fuck it.
Good work. No, that was Meatball from Subway. But no, I've never bought a treasury or nothing like that. I just know that my coaches I consider, you know, that I'll listen to, they say, you know, they need to start dealing with the national debt. You got to get that under control.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I can't tell you when the car is going to crash or where the wall's at, but it sounds like at some point the car will crash into a wall if you don't change direction.
I mean, if there's military strategy, you know, these guys that are depicting when Taiwan's going to go to war, you know, there's got to be people out there that are like Thomas Sowell type figures that are like, hey, it's going to crash at this point, you know, and I'm sure they say that probably every year, you know, or, you know, they predict it every 5 years. I mean, hell, the climate people have been telling us we're going to die every 10 years. So, you know, you just never know what to believe, you know?
Yeah. No, I just, you know, it's like, I always look at it. I'm not a professor, but I can find me some good coaches to.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and that's what, you know, I just need a little help.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So, so where did we leave off at? You said that, okay, so you went to Baghdad, you did that. How long were you say you were there?
2005 November to November 2006, and then we came back home. My full-time job, at the time, I was called what's a readiness NCO. That's your sergeant first class. We had like 80 soldiers in my company. And you're basically doing the human resources piece of all the work that would need to be done. You're getting the training schedules, everything, just so that it's still a functioning unit. You just got a bunch of guys who are part-time, right?
Right.
So I did that until 2008. And then one time, and I've always been a bit chatty and have fun, you know. And anyway, the recruiter was a lady down in Lawrence, Kansas. She was a supervisor of all the recruiters. We got assigned. We had to help the recruiters do some recruiting event, and I'm bringing a few kids too, you know, trying to help them out. And and have some fun. Well, by that time, I'd been in about 18 years. I had a lot of experience. I know how this operation works. And she told me like a week ago, man, I'd like to bring you over to recruiting. I was always afraid of that. I always thought that would be like some type of sales, hard sales.
Yeah.
You know what? Finally, I was like, you know what? Okay. And they sent me, you know what they did? And this is how I think about today.
You thought you were going to be the guy at the high school doing the pull-up challenge?
No, we didn't. But I can't wait to tell you about that. But I want to tell you about and this is the way I look at things. If I want to learn something, I want some formal training, right? Even today. And they sent me, when I got hired, they sent me to recruiting school. And that was really good. And so when I would go to high schools, now we're the National Guards, all right? We're not the Marine Corps, all right?
Yeah.
So what I did is I came with a different thing. I would give them a sample question, like here, fill out. Here's 5 sample questions for the ASVAB because we're looking for smart people.
Right.
I need you to be able to pass the ASVAB, you know? And then if you take it and you get 4 out of 5 right or whatever, I'll give you a little pencil. I used to have T-shirts, that were real good. Just to have a lot of stuff.
And by smart, you just mean like you want them to have some common sense, right?
I want them to be able to pass that ASVAB and be able to, do the math and stuff like that.
Right. But it's nothing like
no.
Okay.
No, a senior in high school. So a senior in high school should be able to pass. Okay. Most of them can.
That's what I wanted to kind of keep. That way the listeners understand. It's not like you got to be some type of, brainiac.
It ain't algebra, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Which not a lot. Right. I never liked algebra.
but that was really a fun time because then I'm in the schools, and that's where I really learned to cheer for younger people, man.
Yeah.
And then 2 years after recruiting, and I did really well, and I'm glad. And I did do really well. I always finished top 3 or 4 out of 50 recruiters. I was proud of that. But 2 years later, I'm working at the MEPS where you go, some of these guys will know about it, where you go to do your testing and enlistments and all that. That's pretty much a fast-paced process. I'm inspecting all the packets, making sure everything's correct. And it was kind of like a break because it was close to the house.
Right.
And then after 2 years, they said, hey, man, we're going to bring you out early. We need you to recruit. And I got to choose between Lenexa again or Kansas City, Kansas. And growing up in Northeast, I was like, you know what? Hey, it's a shorter drive from my house, but I got to be a recruiter in our inner city. Okay. And that was not only enlightening, but it was rewarding too, because I was able to help some kids that otherwise wouldn't have a good opportunity to take advantage of that. So I did that for another 2 or 3 years. No, that's a good thing, man, because some people don't have any other options. You know what I mean? And you're giving them an option. Yep. This is one thing I was happy about. We had a kid, Gerardo, and he went to one of the schools over in KCK. His mother and father had both been killed. He lived with his aunt in an apartment. He was a senior in high school, and I could bring him into the National Guard, right? But going to college or going to the regular Army. And we ended up letting him go. We ended up putting him in the regular Army. And now he's married, been in like 10 years, For his situation, living with his aunt, I think that was a lot better. And that was one of my favorite things we got to do with that kid, is give that kid a really good opportunity. Yeah. Because think about it, if he didn't have that, what would he have been? A statistic? Hard to say. He was a good kid, but I don't think the level of opportunities would have been there for him. That's what I'm saying. You know? Yeah. And no matter how we feel, with maybe some issues that we've discussed, like I said, with the military, it does also do good as well for people. The structure, the training. Yeah. I refer to it as big boy, grown up Boy Scouts, but when I was a recruiter, I needed to do factual studies so I could explain to parents. I had to talk to parents sometimes. Right. And I would research like national average income for former military guys that are working in the civilian life, and then people in the civilian life who are not. Stuff like that. Reasons why employers want to hire people with military experience. Right. A whole bunch of, and then what I wanted to do is make sure that everything I tell them that, is accurate, because that was important. And, because there's some good qualities, like a lot of companies will want to hire people with some of the good habits that they develop. Right. Not everybody turns out to be an eagle.
Right.
But
yeah.
On average, a lot of them guys turn out to be really good employees. So, and as I look back, I'm proud of some of those kids to watch them grow from high school senior. Now they're in their 30s.
Yeah.
Doing great things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's got to feel very fulfilling.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long did you do that for?
So that was basically between the first 2 years of recruiting and then 2 years at MEPS, military interest, and then 2 more years of recruiting. And then shortly after that, around early spring 2015, I got promoted to be the area supervisor. And now you're a master sergeant. And and the way I look at it, I'm supervising, but I'm also coaching. And I had a lot of young new recruiters. And I remember this one recruiter, and I did this until I retired. Mm-hmm. Right.
You did recruiting until you retired?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, so it was 19 years in the infantry and like 8.5 in recruiting. But, with these young guys, there's my favorite his name was Sergeant Galvin. He struggled. And he was a fun guy and he had everything he needed. He'd talk, he'd work, just wasn't able to get dudes to MEPS and get them to enlist. Mm-hmm. But eventually he turned out to be one of the best recruiters. It just took him a little while, but we did that for 2.5 years. And, I look at this part of my Northeast, I call this my old Northeast mentality. Mm-hmm. They're going to give me money not to come to work anymore. So I looked at it and, and I was like, yeah, I retired right at a little bit after 20 years. Okay. So I didn't do no 21 as far as active duty time.
Still a long time.
Yeah. It was really, you had like 6 years or so as a weekend warrior. Mm-hmm. And then you had that first 4 and then the rest as an active duty guardsman. Yeah. From February 2001 till June of 2017.
What else did you do other than Baghdad when you were a guardsman? Did you do anything, any natural disasters or?
Nah, I think we had some guys. We had a few times that we would call in a few extra guys. And they would do like whatever operations. They'd get a Humvee and they would start to do like checks of certain areas, like when the weather, like a freeze or an ice storm. But I don't recall ever going out and doing nothing other than, like I said, did my first deployment, Desert Storm, then to Egypt with the regular Army. Then we did Europe for almost a year. Right. And while I was there, by the way, I traveled a whole bunch of countries and visited, And
how was that?
Really good. I got to go to
just to be exposed to different life and different, in different countries. I bet that's got to be very eye-opening.
One of my things is we'd have 5 days off every like 2 months. Okay. And I would rent a car because I was able to have a European license. And I just planned out a trip. And I spent a few days in Italy. I spent a few days in Paris, France, Austria, which is near Germany. Of course, Germany. I've been like 8 countries over there. And see, I met my wife over there. Oh, okay. I got there in February. We met in March. And then we got married here like a year later.
Where'd you meet her at?
Not far from the Army base.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she'd been over there for quite a long time. Okay. And we just met, and as we became friendlier. Yeah, right. But by the time you're going to leave, and I was like, man, this is a really good friend here. Mm-hmm. We've been married 23 years now.
And she was from there, right?
Originally from the Philippines. Was able to move there later on. And
so you met her in the Philippines?
No, I met her in Germany. She was born in the Philippines. Gotcha. But she lived in Germany when we met. Okay. And but I was like, oh man, and then she came over to visit, and I'm like, So we talked about it.
Nice.
But what else? One time when it took like a year and a half for her to get to come over. Just to live for good. So right. I went over there one time and I went to the Czech Republic. It's a very far eastern country, almost Russia type. I mean, like, rough. I mean, the farther east you go, the rougher the culture is. Right. They've been through some hardships. Yeah. And we went to the Czech Republic, but they have a thing called the Christmas market right? And there'll be a lot of Asians there, and you can go over there and barter with them.
Oh, really?
So I call it the funnest shopping you can ever do. You know, like Nike sweatsuits, even though they're not Nike, they say Nike.
They probably look just like Nike.
They look
too.
good, and I ended up buying a bunch, but it'd be like, how much? $50. And then like, okay, 40. And then once you start ready to leave, okay, 10. And like, yep.
So this was in the Czech Republic?
Czech Republic.
So are they're Russian, but you said there's a lot of Asian?
It's like, so it's just farther that way.
Oh,
I think you got the Czech Republic, Ukraine, Russia, you know, Poland's not too far from there. It's just a little bit rougher culture.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know what Czech Republic, like what they are. It
used to be Czechoslovakia. You know how some countries, they get split up a little bit and the name change.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a far Eastern European country.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But
yeah, my
good
daughter's
experience.
actually going to Paris, Italy, and a couple of other places, man. I'm really excited for her to go over there and check that out. So she's just going with her. It's like a school program, but yeah, man, it's pretty awesome. I've never been out of the other than Mexico, and but I've never been overseas like that. Right. So that's got to be a whole different, you know, or is it kind of similar? I don't know. Well, I've never been there.
So one of the things I always like to do is when I would go somewhere, I'd like to learn about their culture.
Right.
Just look, watch, eat.
That's what I would like to do.
Yeah. And so Germany, life there is a little bit colder. It isn't a whole lot different from like around here. It depends on where you live. They don't have like, what is that, Milan? No, that's in Italy. Munich.
Okay.
Munich's a big city, and you'll have some inner city stuff like we have.
Right.
But they're small, a little bit smaller cities. But you know, automobiles, cars, houses, just a different culture, a little bit different traditions. But that's other than the weather kind of being cold, you know, it's a pretty good place.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. Germany's definitely been through some shit too. So
Oh,
definitely.
Yeah.
over throughout history.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But by the time I was there, you know, I thought it was pretty solid. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, born and raised here. I've liked red, white, and blue since I was a little kid.
Right.
This is what I love, you know, but
yeah.
I enjoyed traveling there and just learning and experience and eating their food.
Right. Right. Hey, I was going to ask you, what tournament were you in? You said you were in a boxing tournament.
Oh, so.
Well, I guess, hold on. I say let's take a break real quick.
Okay.
Have we kind of covered everything military-wise, you feel like? Okay.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk about your book.
Okay.
So and then we'll kind of deep dive into that.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Sounds good. Yeah.
We are back. All right. There was a couple of things we were talking off air that let's touch on just a bit. The military-industrial complex, we were kind of talking about that a little bit.
Yeah. So if someone tells me, hey, this military-industrial complex, that's why we're going to do this or that. The reason I don't recognize it as a big threat because, and I did a video on this a long time ago on YouTube. If I look at the top 100 largest publicly traded companies in the United States, only one of those companies is in that 100. And it's a GE something. I mean, they make some high tech equipment. You know, you got Boeing. Boeing is part of, they make military aircraft parts. You got Northrop Grumman.
Yep.
So I know there's a lot of things going on for, you know, like we talked about off air, but when I look at the earnings of how much these companies take in, and the best one they have is 98th in revenue, like Apple, great company too, NVIDIA, Advanced Micro Devices, or which may not even be in the top 50, but Meta, all these companies, Home Depot, great company, BlackRock, you know, all these other companies, but yet these military industrial complex companies, I think sometimes that a person may think that they're getting a whole lot of money more than they actually are. I will say, though, they do need a reason to produce military equipment. And fortunately, we sell a lot of military equipment like jets to France or jets to, let's say, Turkey.
F-15s,
yeah, and that's good. But I can understand. I just try to keep that perspective.
Right. Right, right. Yeah, definitely don't be fully conspiratorial about it. I think and I we talked a little bit off air about it. My thing is the funneling of tax dollars. Like, is that all making it to the places that it's supposed to make it to? Also, there was a good movie. I think it was, what's that? The Hangover, Jonah Hill. What's that movie that he was on where they were moving guns? War Dogs.
Ooh.
Now, have you seen that movie?
Probably not, but it sounds good.
Great movie. It's about a guy. He gets his friend into bidding on guns for the military. Like, so what they were basically going to do is provide ammunition to the U.S. military. Like, if you go on a website, you can bid on these contracts. So that's what they did. And it was a true story. They went over to some country. I don't know where that country was, but they found some ammo for really cheap. I mean, we're talking millions of rounds. So you can't just go around and buy that at stores.
Right.
They found a country that had a bunch of stored ammo from like some old war, and they were keeping it in there. They were selling it for dirt cheap. So their thought is, we'll buy that, we'll turn it over, we'll make a huge profit off of it. Well, you can't do that. It's illegal. So they had a way to like go about it and like the bullets don't have any markings of a country on it. So they were going to take it all out of these boxes and put them in new boxes and then sell them. And then what happens is you get greedy over money, and then somebody rats on you, and because you're not paying people, and then you get turned in. But there was a part in the movie where they show like a military camp, like probably a base, like what you stayed at. And they had all these arrows pointing at everything, and it had the cost of how much it to like your AC to keep them heated and cooled, and what electricity and water and all this stuff, the things that we don't think about, and how much it costs to be able to supply that base. And so that's kind of what I mean. It's like, how many of those bases do we have? How long over what? I mean, shit, we were in the Middle East for 20 years before we had that horrible shit show of pulling out. So those are the things when I speak military industrial complex, it's more of
who's getting the contracts.
And we, over the years, I mean, it's just war after war after war. And it's always some reason that they tell us that we have to go. The last one was the threat of democracy, and they hate us for our freedom, and they hate us for all this stuff. But if you go through, and I understand some of it can be conspiratorial, I don't look bad on the conspiracy side of it. I know that there's not good conspiracies, but there's also are good conspiracies. I call it 6 months before mainstream media gets it. But these are things that we have to pay attention to, because we're seeing the cycle, we're seeing the patterns. And if we keep allowing it, then we're going to just continue to be in this over and over and over again. So that's when I say the military industrial complex, I'm just seeing patterns of they're always looking for a way to go to war, because I believe that there are people are benefiting off of that. And who those people are, I mean, there's plenty of people, like we discussed Dick Cheney and Alibert, getting the contract to go clean up a war that he was involved in. So it's just stuff like that, I'm not, there's just so much to it, but that's kind of what I wanted to touch on.
And plus, we're not sitting in the meetings, they're with them to get the factual details. So, I don't call everything conspiracy theory, just some things we are theorizing about because it looks like, and this could be,
Right.
And, there's a lot of dirtiness in the world, period.
Right. And it's not just America. I'm not an anti-America. I'm pro-America.
I mean, even here.
But my thing is, it's like, if we are going to be so judgmental on other countries and their governments, we also need to be conscious of ours as well and the things that we do. And that's not anti-America. That's holding our leaders accountable. Our leaders are not America. Us as citizens, we are America. We are the ones who are breaking our backs and getting our money taken, to to fund whatever it is they want to use it for. I mean, these motherfuckers got an open checkbook, man. You know, and I understand they do some good, but they do a lot of bad too. Or they do a lot of they misuse our money a lot of the times, and we need to be aware of that. You know, we need to be involved in that. And like I've said this a bunch of times, and I'm starting to get into it myself because I'm going to be accountable for my actions as well. I haven't been the best at paying attention to local politics or you know, I've been, you know, always federally wise, keeping an eye on that over the last, I don't know, 10 years, maybe a little less than that. Yeah. But it starts in your home. It starts in your area. You know, you got to change your area. And if we all focus on that, and I'm talking to the people who always say, oh, no, I don't want anything to do with government or anything to do with politics. I get that, man. I don't either. But I'm starting to see if all of us good people, and I'm not saying I'm a goody a saint, you know, I have my own flaws as well. But just good folks like yourself, you know, like guys who really want good for others. And don't want to make money off of you and, you know, try to climb the ladder and that's all they care about. We need to start those guys. You need to start getting in there, because think about if you aren't and all the good people say the same thing, then what's left? Who's going to run for those positions? It's going to be all these pieces of shit, you know, like I said, not all of them, but there's a lot of them still. You know what I mean? Like there's good, but there's a lot of bad as well. We see in there. We see them all the time get caught up in the news, you know? So that's my take on it. But yeah. Also too, dude, I wanted to talk about, we kind of skimmed over a little bit of your martial arts background. I had a question on, because what you sent me, you started karate when you were younger in Northeast. Yeah. Well, and then kind of take me through that.
Well, first off, in Northeast, and I wasn't a tall guy, big guy. I was a small, skinny guy. So, you know, I didn't really try to do a whole lot of that anyway.
Right.
But in the 9th grade, up on St. John Avenue, there was a really good karate school. And I would go there and, you know, after a couple months, you know, they would have me, instead of doing all the katas and stuff like that.
What was this, late 70s, early 80s?
No, this would be about 1980, 82,
karate
81,
was
82.
popping around that time. Yeah.
But it was a well-known school. The owner was a Japanese guy who came from Japan.
Oh, really?
Sayu Oyata. I'll always remember his name, but you can Google his name and read about the guy. It was pretty legit.
Oh, nice.
They opened a school over in Northeast, so I went and did that. And
was that the only school in Northeast?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, you know, it's a lot of solid businesses, you know. I mean, they need a lot of people that can come to their school and pay the tuition and all that.
Well, that's the thing, is that I think that's one big thing that's lacking in a lot of the inner cities is there's no gyms, you know, at least that I know of. Maybe I'm wrong, you know, on that.
As far as stuff like that, jiu-jitsu,
when I've gone through Northeast, I don't see not even a boxing gym. And maybe there is one that I don't know about, but I think having these gyms in the inner city would be so helpful.
Yeah.
So helpful.
They should have a couple boxing places. I know of one in Kansas City, Kansas. I like my area was Whatsoever Community Circle or Center.
Oh, I actually, that gym still is open. Yeah. I don't know if they're in Northeast though. I don't think
they're kind of on the east side, almost Northeast, like 12th Street in Bennington is real close.
Oh, okay. I thought they were in Independence.
12th and Ewing, still in Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
But
well, that's good. At least they have that, man.
Yeah. You know, on the karate thing, what they had me do was kind of fun. So I'm just a freshman in high school, about 14 years old. And then there was about a 31-year-old Hawaiian guy, and he probably had like a 15-15 record in PKA.
Yeah.
So they would have me spar with him all the time. You know, and he wouldn't just kick my butt, which he could have.
Right.
I was learning. So that was a good experience. Plus, at that age, I needed some discipline. You know, I didn't need to go out and start fights on the street, you know, which I did a few times. I remember the first time, man, I got tuned up by a guy who actually boxed. Hey, wasn't too bad. It only lasted a minute, but he got the better of me, you know. But it wasn't about going out and looking for a fight or being some make-believe tough guy.
Well, that's the thing about martial arts that people don't understand. They think you're going to it to try to be a badass, and it does the complete opposite. No. It makes you see that you ain't shit. there's fucking killers in those rooms, man. And they're not killers in the sense of they're bullies.
Right.
They're so humble, man.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple of, there's some assholes for sure. There's always assholes in it, but a majority of people good people, man. You would have never have known either. The way they look, they're not these big intimidating. I mean, there are some, but a lot of them, man, you would have never have guessed. I always use my buddy Luke as an example. Like, that dude is such a fucking nice guy, man. Like, super nice guy, doctor, like that. But he will fuck you up. He will work you over. He will fuck you up, man. And he just looks. Anytime you see him, he's just always smiling, walking around, like just. And it's amazing, man. It's amazing how that community is, and it's growing. Yeah, especially over the last, I feel like 5-6 years, it's growing. It's getting big. So people are seeing the positive effects from it.
Yeah. I watched when you had my nephew on the podcast. He mentioned about his uncle and his dad.
You're talking about Chop?
Yeah. When we
Good
later
guy.
on, at one time, it's in 1995, I remember for my birthday, we was watching the UFC and all that. It was new. Our kids were wrestling and it was new. It just came out. Hoist Gracie beating dudes from his back. Ken Shamrock. Love Ken Shamrock.
Yeah.
And, it was for my birthday because my brother Mark always liked to do something like that in nature. And he's like, it's on his birthday. And I'm thinking, we can grapple on our knees and stuff like that. And we did. I thought it was a good birthday present. So we started doing that all the time. We'd never hit. We'd watch different moves, I mean, there's nothing better than being school trained,
for sure.
But we're watching the UFC. I remember watching a Japanese guy named Enson Inoue on his back, tap a guy from Iowa who was good, but he was on his back and he flopped that leg over, got a good hold on the wrist, did an arm bar, bent it back, he's ended up like this, got to tap out. Little stuff like that. And then we ended up going. And this wasn't about to be competitors, though. I did a few, just the point karate tournaments, which I didn't do as a kid, as a grown up. Yeah. But we did go do karate and judo out in Independence, and it was fun. Yeah. It was an activity.
Judo's a motherfucker, man. If you ever went against a guy that has a judo background, I rolled with the guy. He's like an Olympic judo guy. I can't remember his name. Ali, that's his name, at our gym. Man, I always go in. I'm trying to think positive, and I'm like, I'm gonna fucking shoot on this guy. You know what I mean? Like, nope. Yeah. He threw me around the gym, man. I mean, it's just, there's levels to that shit, man. And that judo, man, I have a buddy named Spencer. He's a brown belt in judo, and their posture, the way they feel when you get a hold of them, man, it's just like you're grabbing a fucking wall.
They're good with their hips.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's just like, I tell my boy Spence all the time, we spar a lot and we roll, and he's just like a board. Like he somehow just, when he stands up and locks in, he's like, I don't know, man. It's crazy. It's hard to explain. Yeah. I always tell people, I know it sounds crazy, you got to feel it. You don't know until you feel it,
Yeah. As I get older now, messing around with the kids and all that. For example, I was telling you off that camera when I was an area supervisor, I thought for my exercise plan, I'm going to go up to MMA or Glory MMA and fitness, and I thought Zach Cummings and them were great partners. And I remember I'd roll around with Zach Cummings, who's a bona fide stud.
Oh, I bet him once. And he's a nice guy.
Yeah. But the thing is, he just don't dominate you. And I'll always remember, because I was solid. If I had a strength, it would be at the head and arm triangle choke when we're down. And it was just so funny because he had let me start in a good position. And I swear I almost had him on locked in. Yeah. And, but for me personally, when you're young, you look at opportunities to compete and maybe be a serious competitor. Yeah. And then as you get older, either do or you don't. But I still enjoyed participating in karate classes when I'm older, or doing jiu-jitsu with those guys in my 40s. It's good exercise. And for kids, I really like it because it's a good activity. It's a social activity.
100% agree.
For kids.
Yeah, and building character, building confidence, man. I hope one day I see jiu-jitsu in schools. I really hope, man. Wrestling is fucking great. Yeah. It is great. But if we can offer another alternative as well, I mean, we all know Wrestling, very intense. Those guys are fucking dogs. So are jiu-jitsu
Yeah.
guys, but it's kind of more of a lax environment, depending on what gym you go to for sure.
Yeah.
But generally more lax. And
Yeah.
I think that would integrate so great. I'm not the only one to discuss it. There's been so many people out there that have said the same thing. I really hope, man, because I think that would really help out a lot of kids that are lost. You know what I mean? I mean, it helped me out as a grown man. I felt lost until I found jiu-jitsu in 2019. Thank God I met Jeremy Wharton up at 10th Planet. They fucking changed my life. You know, they literally changed my life. And it's sad because of how popular Rogan has gotten and has discussed how beneficial jiu-jitsu has been for his life and it got me into it. You know, I didn't know what jiu-jitsu was prior. I had seen some MMA and I knew of it, but I didn't know it to detail until you listen to multiple episodes, 3-hour episodes of him just having these other jiu-jitsu guys on. And it just sounded amazing. But now what's sad is that like when you say it, it's like people kind of roll their eye. Oh, you're one of those Rogan guys, jiu-jitsu. It's like, yeah, why wouldn't you want that for people?
It's fun.
Like, I'm not a lost piece of shit. Like, it helped me. And I still struggle with things. It's not a fix all, but it has helped me, man. Like, it's a tool in my tool belt of other tools that I use to help me get along through life, you know? And maybe some people don't need that, but I would put my money on a lot of people need that. You know, a lot of people need those tools in order to handle life, because if you're just sitting there going through the motions, it gets kind of it's kind of depressing at times, man. You know, you need something to look forward to. You need something to be able to train and work towards, you know, especially males, man. You know, a lot of guys need to get into it and just, you know, try it out, man. Fucking try out every gym has like a week trial pass or 3-day trial pass. You know, just go try it out. See if it's for you. Don't give up on the first day. Go back 2 or 3 and, you know, give it a shot, man. And these guys aren't here. They're not going to fuck you up. You know, like you said with Zach Cummings. Yeah. He's not going to just mop the floor with you. Could he? Yeah. He could probably mop the floor with me and you at one time. But the thing is that like, he knows what he's capable of. And this guy's a fucking UFC veteran, you know, and he knows what he's capable. He doesn't need to do that. He wants to teach. Yeah, he wants to teach you. He wants you to come back. He wants you to learn this. Not only does it benefit him for his business, but he knows it's going to benefit you as well. I think that's the most beautiful thing about this whole thing. It's not I'm going to take your money and you're not going to get anything. I'm trying to sell you. He doesn't have to. If you do what he's saying, you know, you're going to see the benefits from it. You just have to keep coming back and coming back. You have to do that. And you don't have to be, like you said, a competitor, practitioner. I'm just a practitioner. I compete in small local tournaments, but I don't consider myself a competitor. I use it as a tool, you know, it's fun. Yeah. You know, you learn things. It makes me more confident in work with friends, at home, in a street scenario. No, it builds those confidence. It rather than not knowing shit. I'd rather know a little than not know anything at all. Yeah. So that's how I look at it. I'm sure you feel the same way, especially with your military background. I'm sure it was nice to, because when did you start jiu-jitsu?
Well, that formally was 2014, 15, when I got promoted to EA. One thing I am proud of, because when I went to a school, I had to go to a regular Army school, but I was just a National Guard guy. In 2002, when we did the combatives training,
I was going to ask about that.
We did their combatives training about that time. Was starting to be was jiu-jitsu. They got away from all that grab them by this and try to bend the wrist stuff, and they got into the jiu-jitsu. But I thought it was really cool, and I had a great time there. But I was a full-time guardsman with active duty Army infantry Rangers. This is in 2001. But I won the combatives challenge, where you start, each platoon pick the guy, and you start on your knees and you grapple until there's a winner. It was like an 8-man bracket. Right. And I won. I was so proud personally, because we had that one guy that was allegedly a combatives instructor, and Holland, I remember, and I just I remember I got him on his back and I just flipped that leg right over and got him to the side. Oh, but it was fun.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm just happy to be there. I want to pass the course.
Yeah.
And
rewarding, man.
Yeah. It was just memories.
Yeah. And even if it like, you know, people will look at it as like, oh, it was just combatives tournament or whatever like that, but it meant something to you, and that's all that fucking matters. I competed at a lot of small local tournaments, and I know maybe to some, and I know the running joke, it's just a $5 medal, blah blah blah.
It's okay, it's
but
fun.
It means something to me, man. You know, like it was fun. It was an achievement. How many 33-year-olds are going to, you know, Kemper Arena to compete in some AGF tournament? You know what I mean? Not very many, you know, because you see that when you show up. There's not a whole bunch of competitors. So I think do what you think is cool, man. You know, and that's how I try to live my life. I think it's cool. I don't care what anybody else says.
Did I say I think it's great for kids?
Yeah.
Because the individual, it's good to be on a ball team, I think. Where you have other teammates. I have grandkids now. I'm so glad my granddaughter's doing like soccer and team sports. Yeah. But also I noticed with a lot of wrestlers or jiu-jitsu guys, you know, just that individual. I can't blame the third baseman for dropping a pop-up, you know. It's just develops that good, responsible. And I see a lot of young kids that like those type of events. Yeah,
and there's people that like individual sports. Like where they're the only ones held accountable. I know now that I played team sports my whole life. I played football my whole life, played soccer, but I really like this because it's like jiu-jitsu, it's all on you, man. Like there's no finger pointing, like you said. Like if you fucked up, that was your fault. You got to train harder next time. You know, if you get submitted and you lose that tournament, that go back to the drawing board. You know, don't be all pouty about it. You only have you to blame. You know, and sometimes things aren't going to go your way, and all you can do is go back to the drawing board and figure it out for the next one. So, but even in wrestlers too, I'm glad you brought that up. There's nothing after college for wrestlers.
Other than MMA.
I want to see them coming. Even if you're just like a dude who wrestled in high school, man, get back into it. Go find a gym. They're everywhere. You got Ignite, you got Helion, you got 10th Planet, you got Cast Iron, you got KCBJJ, Alive. They're everywhere now, man. I hope I didn't forget it. There's a bunch of them. There's so many. Go find, and I'm just this Northland downtown area. You know, there's Shark Bait that just opened up. Go to one of these gyms, man. I've been to all of those, all of them. You know, because I like to go and cross train with other gyms, and they're all great. I haven't had any issues at all, and I ain't nobody. I don't have an MMA background. I don't have a martial arts background. I didn't start learning this until I was 27 or whatever, however old I was in 2019. And then I fell out, and I was out of it for years, and luckily got back into it in 2023. So it's never too late. You're never too old. You know, you just got to go in there and try, man. There's always people in there too. Like I hear guys always tell me, oh man, I'm in my 40s, man. I can't do that. There's other guys in their 40s there. There's guys, I get this guy named Jerry at our gym's like fucking 140 years old. You know what I mean? Like, he's fucking old. You know, he's an old man. Like he still shows up and he still gets down. Like, but he goes at his pace. And actually, I think sometimes a little too much, but I ain't going to stop Jerry. Hey man, it's your life. You do whatever you want, man. You know, but if you think you have to come in at a crazy intensity or have to compete, you don't. You can find your people in that gym or other people. Like, I'm not going to go in and try to throw you around. I'm going to be respectful to how you want to train, you know, that, you know what I mean? So I hope people get past that fear and more people 2 days a week, man. You know, I don't know how much memberships are, but they range from probably $100 to $150.
I think it's fun. Most men would think it's fun if they go, as long as they don't get hurt and all that stuff. I mean,
and you're going to get some owies, you're going to get some boo-boos, you know, shake it off, man.
But it is, I mean, grappling around can be fun for a lot of guys. I'm sure you feel the same way. This is kind of fun.
I love it, man. Yeah, I love it. And I have no grappling background. No wrestling, no nothing. I did football. That's it.
There you go. And it's good cardiovascular, you know, and like now I'm limited, you know, I do bike riding, right, for exercise, 57. But, you know, it keeps me active. But if there was an MMA down the street from me, but there's not, I'd probably go, you know. Make sure I don't get hurt. You know?
Oh, yeah, because you split your time from the Philippines and here, right?
Yeah, we just came back. We're here for 2 months, and we've been there for 10 months. we're going to go back here.
Is this new, or have you been doing this for a long time?
No, I retired from the military in 2017. My wife had been not able to retire yet, but she'd always told me about wanting to retire and move to the Philippines or have a house in the Philippines. Mm-hmm. I was like, man, really? But then over time, because I'd heard it so much, okay, let's think about this. So we ended up building. We went a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, and we found a builder and we found an attorney to represent it, to make sure we don't have no issues. Mm-hmm. And they started building about 14 months ago in January of last year.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so moved in August, and just kind of getting broke into it.
Are you guys like inland, or are you?
No, we're on the very northern. There's like 3 main islands. We're on the northern part.
I don't know anything about the Philippines.
That's okay.
Yeah, walk me through it.
If I'm standing at my house, I'm pointing that way. If I'm facing north, I point that way. Mm-hmm. Maybe like 400 miles from Taiwan, or not Taiwan, Hong Kong.
Oh,
you just got to look on the map.
Yeah.
But Taiwan is up there, maybe 150 miles. We're 35 miles from the top, but it's a tropical area.
Nice.
It's smaller. I always describe it as like we're in Grain Valley if San Nicolas was Kansas City.
Oh, okay.
But the population's only 50,000. But we're right on the outskirts of town where there's some farming. There's like 2 new houses on the block. We're not crowded.
How close you are to the coast?
Like 2.5 miles from the South China Sea.
Oh, okay.
But if you want to go to one of the world's top 20 beaches, you go north about an hour drive.
Oh, that's
really
not bad.
beautiful because the water's all slow. They're in like a lagoon.
Is it pretty clear water?
Oh, beautiful water.
Really?
It's at the northern part. So it is a different culture. Mm-hmm. And if there was something, it's not just easy to go from your home of United States to another place.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to everything.
How was that transition for you?
So it was a little nerve-wracking, honestly, but, now that I've been home, it's even better. But there's new things. I did my best to let my wife manage the building process. Sometimes it's better just for her to deal with them. Mm-hmm. Language barrier.
Oh, does she because she
speaks the language.
She's Filipina. I think that's what
I just did. We don't need 3 or 4 generals up in here. For that project, she managed that really well.
That's awesome.
And no, there's been some pros and cons, but I like it. So I don't have any regrets.
There's always going to be pros and cons anywhere you go. Yeah.
I can say right now, as long as I come home once a year and get my family and friend time in and hugs.
Right.
I still stay in contact with everybody via phone. Mm-hmm. I'm able to enjoy the weather. I love the weather there. It's always 90 degrees. They do have a rainy season. But
is it like 90 degrees here, real humid? Because you are tropical.
It's Florida, tropical.
Oh,
so
yeah, it's pretty hot.
I've been 90 degrees in the desert. For those who don't know, is brutal because you don't even realize. You may not be sweating in the desert.
Yeah.
And over there, it's tropical. At least you're wet.
Yeah.
And whenever it's warm, you got to stay hydrated. Like we have these all the time. Just fill it up with water bottles.
You need another water?
Sure.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. So I'm able to eat. The one thing, you learn about cultures. Here's another one. Mm-hmm. The amount of processed food I eat is really low.
Oh, that's good.
So I was over like, oh, wow, I can get down to, I was at an all-time high, 216 pounds.
Yeah.
Doughboy,
Yeah, that's what I weigh right now.
From when I'm about 198, 197 now. And during that time, though, I'm going to the market, I'll get like a whole bunch of green beans. So I eat green beans almost every meal except for breakfast.
I love green beans. Yeah.
And then I eat a lot of grilled chicken. I'll cook a bunch of grilled chicken, throw in the freezer. I eat that a lot. Mm-hmm. And what hurts me is that I still like my desserts. I like the visit.
I do too, man.
Yeah.
I do too.
Well, they have a place there and a stand at the market called Donut King. Mm-hmm. And they have it's a third world country. Mm-hmm. But, like not far from us, there's a mall and there's a couple
probably
McDonald's.
Have some like metropolitan areas, right? Like city areas. Yeah.
The third world country is an economic determination.
Okay.
So labor cost over there, very low.
Right.
A lot more poverty.
Right.
But anyway, I always like to have my breakfast, have some eggs. Then I always go get my donuts. And then my glazed donuts, really good. But the problem I ran into, I was starting to get into 2 and 3 of those donuts. So I cut it back a little bit.
The fluffy kind?
just straight up glazed, just fresh.
Yeah, but like the puffy.
Little bit
Because
puffy.
I don't like the cake donuts. The dry cake donuts.
Yeah,
kinda.
they're wet, man. They got that sugar's like juice almost.
Yeah. I like those Quick Trip glazed donuts. That's
They're kind of like
ones.
those.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think bottom line is it's different. It's tropical. The weather's great. And as long as I can come home once a year, I'm okay. Mm-hmm. And we got a beautiful house for the price we paid.
I bet your money goes far over there.
It does. A whole lot.
How's living over there crime wise? Like, I'm sure you deal with a lot of the same things we still deal with over here.
Yeah.
But...
So we're far away from Manila, and Manila would be more crime area, right? However, and I looked at a lot of the studies before we ever went, that crime rate is lower here, or lower there, than it is here. The one thing here, and this is not to knock here, but over there, I can go park my motorcycle in downtown area and leave my helmet on the deal and know that it's going to be there when I get back.
Really?
In some higher impoverished areas, it's just the culture's a little bit different. They still do have crime. Do they have drugs there? Yes. And honestly, when you get a chance, remember I told you this, because actually I did a book on this and I've sent it to literary agents, hoping it's YouTube sometime, the Philippine drug war. It's a big deal. And you don't want to be doing drugs over there.
Well, the punishment for that is pretty high.
Yes, and it's just been an ongoing issue. First off, the way I see it, when you have a more impoverished area, and then you throw drugs on top of it.
Oh yeah,
not good.
Yeah. There was a study they did on mice where they stuck mice in I think it's called Mouse Utopia. Mm-hmm. They stuck a bunch of mice in like a horrible environment, like no little hamster wheels and shit to keep them occupied or whatever. And then they stuck mice into a very good environment. They had a bunch of things to be able to keep them active and entertained and all that. Yeah. And they stuck, I think it was like liquid meth or liquid heroin or something like that in each environment. And the ones that had the shittier ones were the ones who drank the most of that drug. Ooh. And the ones were in the nice area, they didn't drink as much of it.
Good
or did it in more moderation.
Yeah.
But it kind of reflects the same way we see in our inner cities. Yeah. The Philippines as well. I'm sure it's the same thing. It's just people that are in impoverished areas, how else do you escape? You can, and we can say, well, they need to do better and get out. Well, it doesn't happen for everybody, man. We don't, I'd love to think that like, hey, everybody has the possibility to make their life the way they want it. You do. Yeah. But there's also other things that play in a factor. Who you're surrounded around, what happened to you when you were younger, all these things. And I'm not giving excuses, but these things are real and they're affecting people on their journey through life and where they end up, man. I mean, it is what it is. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different weighing factors and some people don't make it out. And
it's just,
you resort to drugs to escape. I've seen it with a ton of friends, man. Speaking of the Northeast area, I have a ton of friends that come out of the area. My wife's from that area. Like I know a lot of people down there. I've seen it firsthand, man. I've been down there. I've seen, people close to me lose their lives and not just, not necessarily die, but they're not them anymore because the drugs take over. And it's fucking horrible, man. Yeah. Like it is. And I'm not against drugs at all, but you got to have moderation. And if you don't have that, then stay away from it. Same thing with fast food. If you can't eat it in moderation, don't eat it then because you're going to be 400 pounds before you know it. Everything in life is good in moderation. Yeah. So that's always key. But no, that's really cool, man. I would love to go to the Philippines. There's got to be gyms over there, right?
There is. There's a gym.
They're probably bigger in Muay Thai or.
There's an MMA gym that I know of about 15 miles from. No, about 15 minutes.
I guess boxing would be big because of Manny Pacquiao.
You would think so. I haven't seen one. There is not far from my house a good weightlifting gym, small. Okay. But really good, man. I liked it. And I had a membership for a while, but I'm like.
Is it more of an outdoorsy one?
They have outdoors and indoors.
I love that because like in Thailand, they have that Tiger Camp or something like that. It's real famous. A lot of MMA fighters go over there and train, like UFC guys. I think a lot of one champion guys too. And it's so cool that all their shit's just open. No windows, no nothing. They
Same
may
there.
have an indoor, but everything's just open. You see everyone's little scooters and little motorcycles pulled up, and so neat. And then you mentioned that because I ride motorcycles as well. Is that your main transportation?
Yeah,
over there?
I have a scooter. It's a Honda Click, like 185.
Okay.
I'd probably go 70 miles an hour if I wanted to.
Oh, hell yeah.
But they don't have like I-70s over there or even 152 highways. Not bad enough, but... And I also have a motorcycle with a sidecar. Just in case I need
that's
I
dope.
just haven't got a car yet. I may not honestly.
Well, you don't need it, right?
I don't. Yeah, I really don't need it. If we wanted, like we drove down to Manila, we just took a bus for like 4 or 5 days. But that's my transportation. And like you mentioned about the Taiwan or the Thailand, this gym here, same thing. They ain't running no AC, indoor, outdoor. All the windows open, breeze blowing through. You're in there working out and you're sweating.
Yeah, getting a good sweat, man.
It's a good little place.
Yeah. You were speaking of food too. Like, how's the obese rate in the Philippines?
From my observation, it's a lot less
than here.
Yeah, a little bit
because there's less processed foods.
That too, but however, on the one side, they eat a lot of white rice over there.
Right.
That's like white rice. I mean, you'll see people eating white rice and whatever for breakfast or a sandwich and white rice and French fries. So, and that cheap, there is good for your, they grow a lot of rice over there. But so white rice isn't great for the, you want to, I moderate it.
It's a very debated topic. Yeah.
You don't want to just, I see some guys putting on their plate like, golly, man.
It's an inflammatory, for your gut. Yeah. But I mean, it's debate. It's a debate. It's controversial. I get it. I've had guys that came on here and they've said that. And I've had guys like Mitchell Thompson, who wrote that book, Healthy Made Easy. He's broke it down on here before and explained what he believes. And, it's just one of those things, man. You got to find what works with your body, and I believe a low carb diet is the best because that's what I switched to. And I seen from talking with Mitchell Thompson and I seen the most results, man. Moderation, like we said, you can't have rice at every fucking meal of the day. You gotta split it up, man. You can't have too much of everything. So.
I'm a big fan of green vegetables.
Oh, me too, man.
My family have come from farming. They all lived to be real old and they always ate a whole lot of green vegetables.
Yeah.
And so I just try to eat, like that. But no, they do have less processed foods. Over here, what I've really caught my eye, man, seems like people eat out a lot. I didn't realize that before. Goodness, you're eating out almost every meal, man.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Because they make it almost to where, I mean, and it's not, I'm not giving an excuse. People can change their habits. You have full control. But then again, it's that one thing that we discussed with the inner city. There are factors in play that make people end up having to go down that route. And it's hard to break them out of that habit. It was hard for me, it is, and it still can be. I have to check myself even to this day. Like, hey, my wife will tell me, we've been eating out too much. We got to chill out. You know what I mean? And it's not the whole money. It's just like, hey, you can't indulge that much. You gotta have moderation on this. I understand it's expensive, man. I mean, you go to the fucking store here. I just spent like $300 and something on groceries that we got to go again. It's been a week and a half, 2 weeks. So it sucks. But, it's like pay for that cheap food at McDonald's and then you're going to pay in the long run, And that's another thing that Mitchell helped me see. It's like, he's like, I get groceries are expensive because I told him that and I seen his eyes roll because I'm sure he's heard that 1,000 times. But it's like, you're going to pay more at the end in medical bills, when you keep eating this trash food. So really you're going to spend more now, but you're going to save more in the long run. You're not going to be in and out of the hospital. They're stuck on all these drugs and, not knowing what to do because the doctors are going to heal me. No, you got to change your habits.
I'm all retired and stuff, so I shouldn't be. I got plenty of time to make food, all that. So I don't mean to be critical. So I know people are busy.
I know
busy.
But it's like, and you're right. Like I said, totally right. People are having to work more nowadays because things are getting expensive. So instead of an 8-hour shift, 40 hours a week, they're having to put in 45, 50 hours a week. Both spouses have to work a lot of the times, to be able to provide, me included.
Yeah.
And that can also be a strain as well, because who wants to come home? Both of you are tired. You're like, oh, man, let's go grab something at Burger King real quick for the kids. But I'm seeing this effect on the children. And I mean, what do they say? Over 50% of kids are obese or dealing with chronic issues. Like,
dealt with that as a military recruiter, man. Obesity rate, too fat to join.
I'm sure you see the difference between you were in school and you're seeing the school-age kids now. I mean, and I'm seeing a lot of overweight kids, man. And a lot of the times when you look at them, you look at the parents and they're the same. It's like, okay, you're passing this down. This isn't a fucking gene thing that you think it is. Or, we're kind of bigger, but no, you guys are eating wrong. You got to stop.
Man, I just want to yell at them sometimes, say, goddamn green vegetables.
I know, because, and you're right. Yeah. You get some, dude, and vegetables are cheap. Yeah. Vegetables are cheap, man. I know meat's expensive, but vegetables, a protein, a veggie, you're good, you know? And the thing is, man, is that people look past it. I look at it as a form of almost child abuse, man. I know that's a crazy word to use.
I understand.
But dude, you are setting your kid up for a lot of trouble down the road.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not saying we need to take your kids away, because no, I'm just trying to shock you so you can be like, holy shit, yeah, I am kind of doing it in that way, because I'm thinking I'm giving them this and it's going to be okay, because it's a slow drip. You're not seeing the results the next day. They're slowly, their bodies are changing. But if you look at a picture of them, when they were younger or whatever to now, and go, holy crap, like they're, double chin, big belly, and they're only 5. We have an issue here. Yeah. Like there's something wrong. Your doctor's probably telling you too, like, hey, he's overweight or she's overweight. So, and you can change that, but you got to start with you, and if you don't want to change it for yourself, you're a grown person, but I recommend you change it for yourself, because then it's more easily implemented on the children. But at least do it for your kids, man. You got to do it for your kids, so
got to be healthy.
Yeah. So, let's dive into this book real quick.
Okay.
And I know we're covering a lot, man, because I know I'm going to lose you. You're going to the Philippines. So it's like, I got to get this all in right now. Hopefully when you come back, we can all do it again, for sure.
Yeah.
But, so this is your book, The Erosion of Truth, Freedom of Speech, Disinformation, and the Global Rise of State-Controlled Narratives.
Yeah. And that right there, what had happened? Let me, since I had, that's right there. It's on Amazon.
Yeah.
Just since I retired.
Right.
I always either had a full-time job or I did side work.
Right.
I really like to have a part-time job. I'd do like batting lessons and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And when I would do that, I built a batting cage in my backyard, and I made sure that I had good quality drills, because I wanted to have a good product.
Right.
I wasn't trying to make a whole lot of money, but I'd make some. So when we're over in the Philippines, I'm thinking back, like, man, I really can't work over there because labor's so inexpensive over there. I wouldn't make anything.
Right.
But I got to thinking about some of the work that I used to do in the military, producing training schedules. So producing all type of different memorandums and writings and all that. And I'd always been wondering, can I write a book with some AI experience, with some AI tools? And then, so the very first one, I was like, okay. And then, so I'll be quite frank. I know I'm not perfect. I don't mean to be a know-it-all, but I wanted, this was weighing on my heart. What it is basically in my first experience in Desert Storm, right before we went out to the wars getting ready to start. It was Christmas time. We had a boxing tournament. We had a 4-man bracket. I had boxed before already in like official tournaments and stuff, Golden Gloves and all that. So I won my bracket and I got to pick out my prize. Back then, AM, FM radio was what I picked because I wanted to know what's going on the best I could.
Right.
It's part of the early narrative in that. And then when I got over there, once the air war started, I saw, that our airplanes were kicking that booty, that was tearing it up. They were I would get reports from our command on down to our lieutenant that here we've taken out their air defense. We're bombing this. Then I would also on this channel, I'd be able to get the BBC news, mostly at night, right? Because how the radios work and antenna.
Right.
I get the BBC news, and they was telling me the same thing that I thought, so it was good to hear that. But then also I could flip down the dial and hear the what was it called? The Voice of Freedom. Nice name. Straight from Baghdad. And that was their propaganda channel.
Oh.
So now that aside, that was part of how I built the theme, because I remember that when I was young and that meant something to me. And then later on I think I was in the military. This was in about 2008, 2009. I was in the military still, wearing the uniform. And one of my family members, my brothers, they were all hoodlums just like me. They have grown into some very fine men now.
That's good.
One of them was posting stuff, from a website that has a history of posting things that turn out to be just scary. And then if you follow over time, they're not true. And they never come to light. But about these rail cars, on the train tracks, on train rails, bunch of tanks. And the story was that these are because the military is getting ready to implement martial law and open their FEMA camps. And I'm thinking, those are probably going to Fort Irwin. Every time, like we did training down in Arkansas.
Yeah.
We put all of our armored vehicles on rail cars, sent them down to Arkansas, did training. But, we had the same mother. So I was kind of offended as a military man, supposed to love this country, which I do, but, and I knew it was just nonsense. And number two, that's our mother, man. She sees this too. Why do you want to? So that just was my driving, part of my initial, thinking as some, to be aware of I had to brief lieutenant colonels, every week. So I knew about accurate information,
Right.
And it was very important to be accurate. I know. I keep on hitting that thing.
I'll scoot it. If you want to just come, that way it doesn't.
But anyway, so, I like I said, I was over in the Philippines. I've got time to do things. So I thought, let's write a book on this. And what I wanted to make sure that, like I do any books that I've done since, I want to make it to where it's fact proof. So for example, I won't use references that are left leaning according to All Sides Media or right leaning. I want to if I'm working on another book, if New York Times reports something because they lean left, I need it to be verified by Reuters, BBC, one of those in the center. But I just had some fun with it. But really what it does is
the BBC center?
Yeah.
I thought they were kind of left leaning as well.
They're rated as center. I mean, they might, if some Republican does something all wild, I'm sure they're going to report on it, but they're rated also on the other side. And you might be, like I ran this book through a machine to give me an exact, is it center? Right. And I know because this was my first one, and that the way I built the chapter, this is 44% favoring Republicans, 56% favoring Democrats. I want to be perfect, but that was my first one.
Oh, that's what you got on this book?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good then.
But, I want to be 50-50, but this, like I said,
you're never going to get, I'm probably not going to get exactly 50-50.
Right. Yeah. But I know why that happened, because the way I built it, I had started it. Okay. And then I was like, hey, man, we got to really make some adjustments here. Yeah. After
it's your first one.
Right. It's the first one. Now we've really got a good process down. I'll tell you something I haven't told you before, our initial talkings, but one of the, what we attack is, and I want to make sure that, I think I told you, I've only voted for one Democrat my whole life.
Yeah, we talked about that, yeah.
But I like integrity, and I was, so I just talk about the attack on, for example, I hit Trump a little bit, so let's just get down to what I say about that we come in with the fake news media, the fake news this, the fake news this, and I can interpret that as, okay, you don't like what they're saying about him. Okay, but now we usher in his media, his, and
Yeah.
however, let's just be honest here. ABC, NBC, even when he was saying that, a majority was left leaning, so I just talk a little bit about how now they're set up with right and left wing podcasters, right and left wing social media activists on both sides, radio, radio host, left leaning, right leaning. So I try, like I said, we talked about earlier about like on the stocks markets and stuff like that. I don't want to hear left or right. I want to hear, the best accurate I can get for me. And I don't have all data, I do have all day. I guess.
Data doesn't lie, right? Unless
all day.
But you were looking for the actual facts, and in facts, you need to know statistics or data or like something concrete, like numbers, or something that can be a fact that can be traced back to a legitimate source, which can be difficult, but that's what you're looking for, because data doesn't lie unless it's, I guess it can be manipulated, but hopefully we can track that and find that out. Yeah.
It was just an example the other day. I was saying which president, I won't even say no names. Let's go way back in time. Who produced more oil, this president or that president? Well, they didn't produce it,
Right.
But you can go to the webs, there's officials that'll tell you oil production by month or GDP by year, just little stuff like that. But really what I was doing is I want to make sure I try to be unbiased, but we talk about also, besides the echo chambers and the teams on each side here, it also talks about how we used to get the Kansas City Star delivered to our front yard, local news, way back, well, I was probably a little minion there, Walter Cronkite. So it's changed over time. But I also go into, I know now I don't really mention too much like QAnon and stuff, anything I'm working on, but that was my first one. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But I also,
4chan.
All that stuff.
Yeah, 8chan, I think they're right now.
I also talk about the media in Russia, Iran, North Korea, which North Korea, I kind of personally relate Russia as North Korea senior, and North Korea is over there, and then there's other Iran, North Korea, Russia, China. Right. Okay, yeah, just how they have state-controlled media,
just a bit,
yeah, but just how, like here we have decentralized media, means we're not state-controlled. You can go pay a journalist if you want, if you're a politician.
Which happens a lot.
Oh, yeah. I would say, but the state-controlled media means that, like in Russian, and that's part of from our military training, we always learned a lot about. There was a guy who reported, I think it was a woman, she reported negatively on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and now she's doing like 15 or 25 years in prison. Yeah. So
yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, there's but that talks about some of those in there. Kim Jong-un, it was his half brother, I think it was, and it's mentioned in the book. And I remember seeing it on TV. They duped a couple ladies to blow this poison into the brother-in-laws that had been bad-mouthing the regime or something. And he died like an hour and a half later. It's a big old, I was just watching a documentary on it.
Oh, yeah. So he did it. Yeah, he did it to his own brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the uncle.
Didn't they like put him in a pack of dogs or something like that?
That I believe that was the uncle. All I know is they took the uncle out, a separate deal, and he was part of the government.
Yeah.
And took him out back and shot him.
Oh, okay. I thought there was somebody they like had them like they had a pack of dogs like tear them apart or some shit. Wouldn't put it past.
No.
Yeah.
Saddam Hussein. Rumors are his sons would once in a while. The lions need to be fed.
Right.
But I can't. But a lot of that stuff. I didn't see it, but a good source told me about it that lived there. So
a lot of countries do it, man. Here we like to say they committed suicide and somehow they shot themselves twice.
Yeah. But you know what I would want someone to know is, like I said, I always had a side gig. I can write a book, put it on Amazon. If I make $150 down the road, all said, I'm good on. It's something to do, a little extra money. I am trying harder now, like to actually get a few different ones to literary agents. But the one thing I can promise is, because I had this, it's on Amazon. You just Google or go to Amazon, Erosion of Tooth. One thing I do promise, it is a good read.
Yeah.
I read it myself.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I couldn't
I'll
get
probably
to
leave
it.
this here for you if you want.
After I read it, it's going to go up on that shelf then.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and please get audio. I don't know how you got to go do that, but I'm telling you, audio is the thing.
No,
right
I know.
now.
I need to Google that more. I will personally.
Please.
I looked into it.
Yeah.
My God, that's time consuming.
I know.
But
But it's well worth it.
One of my favorite books I ever read was an audio CD. So I understand exactly.
I listen to 90% of my books on Spotify, or I buy them. From Audible. I was going to say Amazon, but it's Audible. Audible, I pay a membership, and that's where I get a lot of my books from. Because you can keep them. Once you buy them, they're yours. Even if you don't have your subscription anymore, they don't take them away. You purchase those books, and you have them. And I'm able to go back. And it's just a lot of people don't have – either they don't want to, which I get. I do like to open up a book from time to time. My problem is going back to finish it. So, like, when I have it in my headphone and it's saved at the exact – it's just easy for me to go on my phone, click, listen, working on the car, cleaning, organizing something, building something, work, I love it. And people, I tell them all the time, just like podcasting, break it up. This is probably going to be like a 3-hour podcast or something, So like split it up.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the whole thing at once if you can't. Do it like a book, 15 pages a day, podcast, 30 minutes a day. It saves exactly where you left off. So if you do get the audio, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, so what? I cut you off when you're talking about the book. Yeah.
Well,
so is that pretty much the whole?
I will say, it's pretty much over. It offers what the term media literacy. How do we take in news with Fox News, MSNBC, Uncle, Aunt, podcaster, Twitter, TikTok, and it can be confusing, and I think part of my benefit was being in the service so long during this time, because we always relied on, we just to be a little bit pragmatic, to not just listen to what we want to hear, rather than, or join a team. I already said how I voted, but it's just media literacy in Finland, which is right next to Russia. And we also talk about Russia, how I've done this before, believe it or not, and a lot of people have, they don't even know it. I have forwarded probably some anti-Obama or anti-Bush or, on Facebook that originated in a Russian disinformation farm.
Oh.
And we would get training on this in the military all the time, but that's just,
you would forward it where?
Well, forward it like, oh, that's a neat meme,
Oh, share it.
Share it, meme.
Okay.
Because, if we get people to vote a certain way, how we want,
Hey, man, memes are powerful, man. I'm a meme guy.
Yeah.
I'm a meme guy. I share
make
a fuck
some
ton of
too.
memes.
I got some funny ones.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But, it's just, I enjoy writing the book about it. If I spend too much time on the stuff, it can be exhausting, right? But, it's just like I said, generally a little bit about how to slow down and look through some facts. In the country that's why I mentioned Russia. There's a couple countries that are very near there that have improved their media literacy rate.
Are you hitting the okay. Just making sure. They've
improved their media literacy rate, not getting duped or, by having formal training, so I always said, even before I did the book, we got a reading, writing, and science, and reading, writing, arithmetic, and science. We sure could use a little bit of, slow down and verify what you're hearing, because. So
you think that's something that should be implemented in schools?
I think they ought to look at it. I mean, honestly, I do, but I don't like to be one of those.
it affects our lives, on what you read and who you get that information from, for sure. Because then it changes your thought process on who you think is right, and then you end up voting for that person in power, and then you find out that it was all bullshit.
What if you call your congressman and raise hell about some phony bill or some TikTok, big rumor on TikTok? This was just like within the last year. All of a sudden, you got people in Oakland, in that area around wherever the water is, trying to block a ship that they think is carrying arms to Israel, and it's not.
Oh, really?
Just stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Or some guy, going, not to pick sides, but I'm like Pizzagate. Guy went and went to it with a rifle to what, and originally my understanding, I always say it like fairly. My little bit of investigation shows that Russian hackers, and we used to be told this all the time, if you get an email and you don't know who they are, don't click no links.
Yeah, it's a fish email. Yeah.
And was the campaign manager, clicked the link, and then it got infected. Russian hackers got it, turned it over to, then all of a sudden there's a child pornography ring in a Pizza Hut or a pizza parlor with no basement.
Yeah.
A man goes there, Edgar Martinez, something like that, with a rifle.
Yeah, I remember that.
And, I'm just saying, that stuff is fun, but
yeah, because I remember, I can't remember. I did a deep dive on that back in the Purple Pill days. I can't remember fact to fact, but I remember I listened to a lot of different podcasts on that story, and it was very weird, especially who he was linked to, the amount of money they were spending on pizza, certain politicians, like, $10,000 for a bunch of pizzas, which is weird. But like you said, is it true? Is it not? It's hard to figure out.
I could be wrong.
It's hard to figure out.
And I'm glad I'm talking to someone like you. I could be wrong.
I could be wrong as well. Yeah, because even on the Pizzagate, I was kind of like iffy about it too. And still to this day, I don't know. I don't. That's what sucks. You really have to deep dive and take the time. And that's hard, man, because there's so much going on.
Not that. Yeah. For me, if someone asked me what would my percentage be of believing that Pizzagate was really a conspiracy, it would be, I guess I could give it a 0.1. That's only because of the circumstances. There's been a lot of things said, but I trust, just me. I like Grok 3. It's AI. Elon Musk is AI. I used to tell my friends. But they'll spit out the sources, provide, the actual reports and all that. But, regardless, whether that 1% is a bad bet or not, people in power want to have people on their side. So sometimes they'll say anything.
Right.
If I want, I never see this, but like if someone wants to move up in the ranks, they want to be better than their opponent. And if they can splatter their opponent,
Even with stuff like Pizzagate, I don't think what helps either is that you just see a lot of things in Hollywood dealing with pedophilia, and they tried to shut that down, like that movie that came out. Julian, what was that movie about the kids that were the Underground Railroad one? Oh. Do you remember that one?
No, but I've probably heard about it.
Huh? No, it was the dude that made The Passion of the Christ.
Yeah. Oh, no, I know. I saw that movie.
That was the Passion of the Christ. I know Mel Gibson was involved in The Passion of the Christ, but it was called like Silent something. I can't remember the
last couple of years, right?
Yeah,
that's a really good
movie.
Remember
they were attacking that movie a lot, and it was actually based on a true story. They definitely Hollywood,
right?
with all the action. But Operation Underground Railroad was a real unit that went in, and they were breaking up these elite rings of child pedophilia. Yeah. And but we're seeing that a lot. You see child stars coming out talking about being molested by these, Nickelodeon producers and shit. Like, it's just, so when you have that, that's, real, and it's more rampant than what people think. And it doesn't just happen in Hollywood. It actually happens in a lot of just normal people every day like us, homes.
Uncle and niece.
Yeah, exactly. Or father and daughter or son, whatever it may be. The sad part is a lot of the monsters are usually your relatives. Right. That's what really sucks. It's horrible. And it's just So when you have that and then you get this Pizzagate thing, you go, oh shit, this must be linked because politicians are being accused of this and some of them are getting arrested and caught doing this. And so then you can kind of bridge that together and then the story seems like it's real.
It's believable.
It's believable. And I'm not saying Pizzagate is true or not. I personally don't know. There's more people that are there's more people that are more educated on that subject than I am, but I always try to leave it open to possibility. But like you said, some of it not all conspiracies are true.
Nothing, but sometimes in this world, nothing can surprise you.
Yeah, or even when you discuss Trump and him calling out fake news, is he right that there's fake news? Yes. But what happens when we're calling you out on your bullshit?
Thank you.
And then you're calling that fake news as well. You know what I mean? Like we discussed off air earlier, where I ended up voting for him in this last election, which I haven't voted for anybody since Gary Johnson. And, I was half of the libertarians got swayed to vote for him because he was speaking a lot of libertarian ideologies. We had hope for him. And he's still, he's only been in there, 100 days or 100 something days. So
just over 100.
Yeah. So I don't expect there to be miracles. And I think people that make him out to be like, oh, you're a Trump doubter now because, he's not doing this. It's like, all right, well, one, he's only been in there for a little bit. So let's chill. Two, I'm not a Trump doubter. I'm just a person that I don't blindly follow a person I vote for. So if I see I don't like, if I see things like, hey, Trump, what happened to this $5,000 thing? What happened to cutting income tax? Where's and maybe
politicians do
and
that.
maybe it's in the works. I do give that. It's not going to happen overnight. The no tax on tips or this and that. He did release Ross Ulbright, which was actually pretty cool that he did that he did say he was going to do that for libertarians, which needed to be done. That was a crazy arrest, but or things like the MAHA, Making America Healthy Again, fully support that, It's getting a little kind of swaying away. There's a lot of shit going on there, or dismantling some of the alphabet agencies that we don't need. Stuff like that. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm big on that. But when I don't see stuff happening, or like if I see just full on blown out support for Israel and blindly supporting them on some of the things that they shouldn't be doing, that they should be called out on. We have to talk about these things and not just go, well, that's my guy, so I can't say anything bad because if I do, then the Democrats are going to know that I don't like everything he does and I don't want them to think that they're right. It's like, who fucking cares, man? Who cares?
So this is me, and I usually like I said, I usually try to be in the practice of taking information and not jump into a conclusion.
Right. Yeah.
So I'll just
sit on it for a little
frankly,
bit. Yeah.
I remember when I was working at MEPS I mentioned that earlier, about 2013 or 14. And we were just talking. I said, I'd like a businessman like Donald Trump to be president. He had ran before.
Yeah.
If I will tell you that, so I'll just cut to the chase. After once he said the election was stolen, I paused for a minute. And then it wasn't long before I personally decided I will never vote for him for anything else again. Integrity violated that.
Off
to
of
me.
that one comment?
Well, for trying to claim that the election was stolen.
You don't think it was stolen?
Absolutely. For me.
Right. No, that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely not. Worked at elections. I've, one by one, like a friend of mine, we were just talking not long ago. He's talking about, what about all these people with green cards voting? And I just took him right upstairs to my.
Or mail-in ballots and stuff like that.
Mail-in, but, and here's one thing, what he would say is about the mail-in ballots, and Ron, he said like something about, do you really think that so-and-so vote? I think Joe Biden was the worst ever exec. I'll explain. Man, I keep hitting that. I'll tell you that later.
If you cut the angle a little bit, it'll keep you from. Yeah. That way you don't keep.
Yeah.
There you go.
So he said, man, do you really think so-and-so got this and that many votes? What? I've worked at elections. Every election place has lawyers there for each party. And it's not that we had every 18 cabinet members and everybody. So for me, I 100% believe it was BS.
Right.
But sometimes I'll hear something like all of these illegals voting. I'm like, when you go vote, they check your name off, and you can't register without being a citizen. So my stepson, Fabian, born in Germany, he's a good kid too. Well, I say kid, he's your age probably, but he is a green card holder. He cannot vote, and so, and not to spend all day on this because I know you probably have things to say about it too, but no, absolutely not. It's kind of like you do your research thoroughly to where
for sure,
absolutely not. Now, I did tell my friends, I do hope he wins this election because
you didn't have much else to choose from other than
right. I thought Scott Pioli, you may not remember him. He was the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs in the early 2000s, and I thought he became my worst executive leader that I've ever been around or seen, and he was replaced by Joe Biden. He was incompetent. You can't be your spokesman.
This was Joe Biden who wasn't incompetent, like old Joe Biden, or is this
Joe Biden, the president from 2021 to
but what year was this that he replaced who?
He's replaced Scott Pioli on my list of most incompetent executives that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, very much.
And
very much.
But I was personally hoping for Trump. Yeah. And then you mentioned something about ushering in false news. I got a laundry list of what I call fact checking on said this, done that, but the truth is this,
Right.
You can spend all day doing that. And, but that's how I'd rather have him than what we had.
Yeah. And I tell people this all the time. You want big government. It's not going to be perfect. No. And if you want small government like I do, it's not going to be perfect either, and I just believe small government would be best because you're more in control of your life. Now, is that going to mean you're going to live in some type of unicorn utopia to where there's going to be no violence and nothing to worry about? No, you are going to have to be responsible for your life. You're the first line of defense. You own your own, you own your own property in life. You do it with it as you like, and hopefully the people around you in your community are the same. You have to, that's what you have to surround yourself around. But hey, if you rely on government, it's going to get bigger, and then it's, we're going to have shit like what we're dealing with. And like you said, even the misinformation, trying to decipher everything. It's hard, man. Even with the voting thing, I leave it open to, I always think there's a possibility that there could have been some voting fraud for sure. I've read a lot of things on it. Are they 100% accurate or factual? I don't know. All you can do is try to trust in the information that you find, try to get other sources as well and counter arguments as well to them and come up with the conclusion on your own like we discussed. So, you just don't know. You just don't know. But my thing is that if you leave everything up to government, full control. If you do that, then there's going to be room for fuckery. There is, and I don't know how else to explain that.
I don't like paying a whole lot of taxes.
I don't either. 35%'s wild.
I think we need. Obviously we're an institution, the United States of America, and as an institution, we got some good roads. We got some, but
we'd still have roads if taxes got cut. So
I'm thinking they're finding some.
All you guys that are like, what about the roads? I love those guys. When I talk about taxes getting cut, they're like, well, what's going to happen to the roads? Right. You'll be all right. Also, look at our roads right now. They're not that great, and we pay taxes. So I was just watching Gladstone fill in potholes out here.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know who they hire for some of these people that they have do some of that work. But it turns into a bunch of dips that are going to blow out your ball joints. We're jumping over ramps now because they just throw this asphalt in. Don't even pack it down. Then you got it's insane, man.
I've had to buy a new rim, a wheel.
Oh, I bet.
For a car, like a couple of times when I was younger.
Oh, yeah. That happened to me. Yeah.
And you hit a good pothole and bam, got to watch out.
You got to watch out, man. Private sector, I believe, always does better. But,
yes.
But yeah, man. So, you want to go over anything else in your book? I feel like we.
Yeah, you
got another book coming up.
I've got one that I want to do it really good. So I've got one very similar to that,
Mm-hmm.
but I made sure we're not like biased or, nonpartisan.
Well, but that's what I like about you, man. And when you emailed me and you really hit on that, like,
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that,
Yeah.
because the people that don't speak of that concerns me. You know, it's like, I think the goal is to try to get as close as factual as possible.
Yeah.
Are you going to hit that 100%? No,
No.
But we appreciate you trying to do that, because you're a human being.
Mm-hmm.
You can only go off of the resources that you were given. The internet's huge, so it's hard to navigate everything, and do the best you can to get I bet you that book's better than a lot of the other Douglas Murray and his whole "we need neo conservatives," conservatives and books like that. Like, this is probably more accurate.
Here's one you'd like. I told him, because I've got time. So I've got 2 that I've sent to literary agents. I got good feedback.
Yeah.
But not everybody wants a certain style of book. And it takes them a while to get back to you. So I was really happy with some of the feedback I got. It means I'm doing it right.
That's good.
But I tell my friend, I'm retired. I ain't trying to be, if you look on my YouTube, once in a while I'll make a video.
I need to get your YouTube actually before you leave.
It's just fun around fun. It's probably boring, but once in a while. But I'm 57. I ain't trying to all of a sudden, I ain't no way I'm going to get like 5,000 or 5 million YouTube followers or anything else. But for this right here, at least I'm going to swing for the fence.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, it's like, you've already got you had your career.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've taken care of you've been smart and taken care of yourself financially to where you have the freedom to be able to do this. I would like guys like you to be doing this shit because you're not going to get manipulated by dollars. No. Like, you don't need this to pay your rent. You don't need this to be able to get your shit going.
Right.
Like, you're doing this purely off of something you believe. Yeah. Fun money. and with that, you can have the creative control and try to be the best at what you're doing, rather than, hey, who's going to give me some money to make this book and I'll take whatever. I can't say this. Okay, are you going to give me that check? Like, it's just not.
No,
and
right. It don't always sell good. Sometimes they want a left or a right guy.
I know, but man, stay out of that, please.
No, I've got the one for the Philippine drug war. I'm linking up with an attorney that we know.
Okay.
See if he wants to co-author.
Oh,
because he's already published a book.
That's not the second book, is it?
You've
got a couple of books.
I've got a couple that and I already did send that to a literary agent, University Press in Manila.
Okay.
But the thing is, the way I see it, I guess I can say I'm an author. I'm an Amazon author. Right. It ain't hard, but But like I said, it's more for fun. Like I told my wife the first day I did this, you never count your eggs before they're hatched.
Right.
Let's just see what we can do. But I do like the idea, like you, man. It's a beautiful place here, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And this is really, I've seen it on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Shit, swing for the fences, dog.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying, man. I mean, because my thing is, it's like, dude, I work a 9 to 5, man.
Yes.
So like, I don't make shit off of this. Mm-hmm. I luckily have guys like my brother, my buddy Dom, that come in and help me. I don't pay them. He does it to help me out, and so does Dom. And, the people that are watching and listening, I super appreciate. Uh-huh. I'm not getting thousands of views, but you know what? Mm-hmm. I don't care, man. This is something that's cool for me because it creates a time capsule for me and the guest as well. From 10 years from now, they can look back on and, be like, damn, that was a pretty cool conversation, or maybe cringe a little bit. We always do that about ourselves over time, but that's okay. You learn from that and you grow, and I'm
pulling for you, man.
I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate it. And I love talking to people. I love learning about all sorts of different things, like, you said you're from the Philippines. I was like, holy shit. Like, not only did I want to hear about your military career, but little things like you living in a different country or how you grew up. And we all have a story. I think it's really neat. And I really want to show that you don't need to be a blue check mark. You don't. Like, you don't have to have this celebrity status or whatever it is. Like, you can come on here and be some carpenter for the union, and be like, hey, man, I got some, I mean, you got to come on here and be able to talk about something. Right. But a lot of people don't understand or don't believe that you have more to talk about than what you think. Yeah. That's pretty interesting. We all have pretty weird, interesting lives, man. It's cool to kind of break them down and reminisce and go over those. Yeah. So, I find that really neat. But If you feel like we hit everything, man,
I think we're good.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, and I
appreciate it
and
too.
you know, I got all the time in the world to do things.
Yeah.
I'm cheering for you, and
Thank
you know,
you.
it's just who I am.
Hey, man, as well as you too. I can't wait to see some more, but I can't wait to dive into this book, man. I super appreciate it. Like I said, get that audiobook out,
will.
man.
I'm gonna
get
look
that.
at
I'll
it.
look into it at least for me, and hey, man, stay in the loop with me, man. You know, you know, I got your number. I need to give you my number, and then, yeah, man, just keep in contact because I'd love for. I know you probably won't come back for another 10 months, but
something like that.
It's all right. Maybe we can do this a once a year thing, man. It'd be kind of cool to catch up.
And we have a guest house. You can come over there and just $10 a day.
I'd love it, man. $10, I can afford that.
That'd cover the AC.
Yeah, that'll cover the AC. Yeah. Nice, man. Hey, well, Darin, I really appreciate it, man.
It's been fun.
All right, thanks.
All right.